It's so hard to live through the Marvel world, but also to wear a vampire, is it so unlucky? In the dimly lit room with the windows closed, Bert Wong looked at the poster on the wall with Tony Stark's beating face. His head hurts a little. Although he really likes Marvel movies, he doesn't want to travel to this precarious world, which is the same as surviving the doomsday, let alone a vampire at the bottom. Vampires are afraid of the sun, garlic, and silver. Even wearing an ordinary person is 100 times better than wearing a vampire. At least, ordinary people can go to the beach to enjoy the sun, beautiful women, and bikinis. As for Chongsheng, what is Chongsheng like a mouse doing? I have to find a way to change all this. I don't want to be a mouse all my life. Wang Bert's eyes became sharp. He looked at the poster on the wall, and thought deeply. Tony Stark's appearance is the same as in the movie. It should be a movie-based Marvel world. Well, the only vampires in Marvel movies are Blade Warriors, but now it's 2008, and the era of Blade Warriors seems to be quite early. After the popularity of Marvel movies, Bert Wong rewatched the Blade Warrior trilogy, so he was a little impressed. If he remembered correctly, the second film seems to have action star Cosmic Dan. At this moment, a voice suddenly came in from the door. Bert, keep staring at Tony Stark's poster, do you like men? Wong Bert turned his head and saw a pale red-haired woman in a t-shirt and shorts standing at the door looking at him sneeringly. Next to the red-haired woman was a 1.9-meter tall man. Seeing Wong Bert looking over, the strong man glared at him fiercely. Wong Bert pretended to be cowardly and looked away. This man and a woman are also vampires. The woman is called Jenny, and she is the one who bit Wong Bert, the thing before the time of travel. Simply put, it is just one sentence: Wong Bert covets Jenny's body, and Jenny covets Wong Bert's blood and money. As for the man, his name is John, and he is a thug. Wong Bert was beaten many times by him before, and he did not dare to resist in front of him. Wong Bert asked in dissatisfaction, "Why are you here again? Why, do you have an opinion on our coming?" John said irritably, "Don't forget, we turned you into a noble bloodline." "That's right, do you know how many Ha-blood clans don't have the chance to become blood clans?" Jenny also said that the development of descendants of vampires does not just need to be bitten, it needs to drip their own blood. Do ghosts want to become vampires? Well, are vampires considered ghosts? Bert Wong secretly complained. He sighed, "The blood race is completely different from what I imagined. I thought that the blood race would be like the vampires in the movie, elegant and noble, like a noble." After speaking, Wong Bert glanced at John and Jenny with a disappointed look on their faces, and the two suddenly became angry. Does this mean that they are not noble or elegant? It's true, but you can't say it. How noble and elegant without money? We are not those pure bloods. Jenny walked in and snorted, "Those pure-blooded vampires are better than the vampires in the movies, not only have infinite wealth, but also inexhaustible blood, and even raise many handsome men and beauties as blood slaves, which is like we can only buy expensive blood bags to drink. If it wasn't for those cowardly purebloods who signed a contract with humans and were not allowed to human blood casually, how could we do this?" John complained unhappily, "Every day's hard work is just enough to buy blood bags. It's not as good as living as a human being. By the way, I heard that the money for buying blood bags was divided between pure blood and humans." "Pure blood, mixed blood?" Wong Bert's eyes flashed and he asked again, "Since there is a contract, why do you dare to turn me into a vampire?" John walked in, grabbed Wong Bert by the collar and lifted him off the ground, and said with a grim expression, "Boy, what did you say? Say it again? I didn't hear it just now." "I didn't say anything, I didn't say anything." Bert Wong turned his head away while pretending to be afraid and shouted, in fact, he couldn't stand John's tone, "It stinks." John snorted, threw Wong Bert on the ground, and said impatiently, "Stop talking nonsense, give me $20,000. $20,000, you spent too fast, right?" Wang Bert got up and said reluctantly, the parents of this body left him a lot of assets before the car accident. He was always worried that he would be targeted by the bad guys, but the bad guys didn't come, but the vampires came. Jenny giggled and said, it's okay, when you run out of money, we'll take you to find the next rich man, and then use your blood to develop descendants. It's still sustainable development. Bert Wong secretly complained, he sighed, picked up the checkbook from the side and started to sign. The old American side usually used credit cards or checks for large amounts, and $20,000 was not a small number. John nodded with satisfaction and said, don't be so stingy, when Boss Dickenfirth leads us to overthrow pure blood, all humans will become our food, and then we will truly become nobles. That's right, blood aristocrats, you can't drink enough blood, you can't spend enough money, all human beings are our slaves. Jenny also shouted frantically, in the hearts of mixed-race vampires, Dickenfirth is their savior. Dickenfirth. Wang Bert's heart moved. If he remembered correctly, Dickenfirth was the villain in the Blade Warrior movie. In the movie, he successfully led the mixed blood to overthrow the pure blood, and used the Sunwalker blade, and 12 the pure blood elders' blood turned himself into a blood god. The blood god is very strong, not afraid of sunlight, garlic, or silver. He can even recover after being cut in two, but it seems that his IQ will be lowered. That is to say, hasn't the story of Blade's Edge started yet? This is good news, blood god, powerful strength, and endless wealth and power. Bert Wong's eyes flashed with heat, and then he handed the check to John and asked about Dickenfirth. Boss Dicken will hold blood feasts every once in a while. I'll show you at that time. It's hard for us mixed-race vampires to survive alone, and we have to be in a group. John took the check, patted Wang Bert on the shoulder, and said with a wide-eyed smile. Wang Bert snorted coldly, holding together? Is it exploitation? Pure blood exploits mixed blood, you exploit me. After getting the money, John and Jenny left happily. They will spend all the money in a short time, and then come back to Wang Bert until all his money is spent. This is the way they came up with a fortune. I still need you to help me integrate into the vampire group. Let me spare your life for now. Wang Bert stood by the window watching the two leave, and sneered inwardly. They were just two vampires. If he wanted to, it would be easy to kill them. Just take a photo of them with an ultraviolet light. It always feels so sad, this vampire is too weak, isn't it? Wang Bert couldn't help but complain. He thought about it, picked up his clothes and went to the street to find the owner of a gun shop in Chinatown. If he wanted to finish his previous thoughts, he had to strengthen himself first. The owner of the gun shop had a scary face. After listening to Wang Bert's request, he said in amazement, "You want to find an instructor to train your combat ability? What trouble have you encountered? If so, I suggest you call the police, or spend money to eliminate the disaster." Wang Bert shook his head, "No, I just wanted to play something exciting all of a sudden." The shopkeeper of Scar looked at Wang Bert and said, "Then you can go to a formal training company. Although I have a shooting range here, I don't have an instructor. It's just for people to test guns." "That's too slow, I don't have that much time. You are well connected, you should know some private instructors, the kind who have been on the battlefield." Wang Bert said, "I can pay you some referral fees, or buy some more things." Hearing that there is money to be made, the shopkeeper of Knife Scar smiled and said, "In this country, you can do anything with money, but the price of private instructors is not low. A good instructor is naturally worth a good price." Wang Bert laughed. He heard early in the morning that the boss was a retired soldier, and he really had a way. As for money, it's useless if you don't solve the trouble of vampires. Besides, it doesn't belong to him anyway, so you can use it as soon as you use it. Good. The owner of Knife Scar didn't talk nonsense, closed the door of the gun shop, took out a notebook from the drawer and put it on the table. "The above is the training officer I can contact, but you need to discuss the specific conditions yourself. I will only help introduce people. Let me consider. Wang Bird picked up the notebook and turned it over. The information on it was very detailed. In addition to the name, there was also a resume, but there were no photos. Okay. Wang Bird turned a few pages and saw a name. He was stunned for a moment. The owner of Knife Scar glanced at him and introduced, "This is a real ruthless character, he has won the Navy Cross and the Medal of Honor, and now he is training for the troops. Officer, of course, he charges the highest. It's really a ruthless character." Wang Bird nodded, and secretly complained, "Can you not be cruel? This is the Punisher Frank Custer. In other words, Uncle Pu, who has big eyebrows and big eyes, can secretly take private jobs. Punisher, an anti-hero who uses violence to control violence, the targets he targets will basically die. To put it more exaggeratedly, even the cockroaches in the gang can't survive. Of course, Frank's family is not dead yet, he is still a retired training officer, and he is not blackened. Just him. I want to chat with him." Wang Bird closed the notebook and said, the shopkeeper of Scar smiled and said, "I hope you have enough proof to buy the gun you need. Although it is easy to buy a gun in the Old Beauty, you need a gun license. Among them, it is much easier to buy a rifle than to buy a pistol, and these certificates, I am sorry, Wang Bird does not have one." Wang Bird smiled and said, "I can buy some souvenirs, the expensive ones." The next night, Bird Wang met Frank Custer, a tall and strong man with a sturdy and iron-blooded aura in the cafe. I don't know if it was because he became a vampire, but he smelled the mountain of corpses from Frank. The smell of the sea of blood, there is no doubt that this is a ruthless person, even a wolf annihilation. Frank looked at the pale Wang Bird and frowned a little. To be honest, he didn't like him very much, he was too thin, and his breath was too cold, which made people uncomfortable. However, thinking of his comrades who were short of money and needed help, Frank sat down and had a serious talk about this private life. After a friendly greeting, Wang Bird smiled and said, "Mr. Custer, I approve of your strength, but I have a few requirements." Seeing that he started talking about business, Frank breathed a sigh of relief. He hated politeness the most, and he said, "Tell me. First, training can only be done at night, I don't have time during the day." "No problem, I'm not free during the day." "Secondly, I want to have the ability to fight in the shortest possible time, both for fighting and firearms, the shooting range wants you to contact me." "Of course, I will pay for the money." Frank glanced at Wang Bird and said cruelly, "It's not impossible, but in that case, the training will be very cruel, and you may even go to the hospital. I have strong resilience, so there is no problem." Wang Bird smiled and said, "Mr. Custer, you can train me as you like, as long as you think it can improve my strength." Frank couldn't help but glance at Wang Bird again. Does this kid have any special hobbies? As for the third requirement, it's a little too much. Bird Wang said a little embarrassedly, and Frank frowned. Before he could think about it, Bird Wang continued, "I hope you can protect me during the training process." Frank expressed his confusion, "What do you mean?" Wang Bird said, "I just went to the street to find some violent elements to fight, you protect me." This one. Frank is actually not a problem with this request. When he was in the Middle East, he often asked recruits to do this. He pretended to hesitate and said, "We need to pay more." Wang Bird laughed, "No problem, Instructor Custer, I'll trouble you in the future. Don't worry, I also have a request." Frank waved his hand and said, "You have to pay first, and whether you quit this training or not, I will not refund the money." "Can?" Wang Bird nodded and agreed, if it was someone else, maybe they would torture him on purpose and make him quit, but the arrogant Punisher would definitely not. After only 24 hours, he realized his innocence. "Damn, this guy is definitely torturing me on purpose," and then runs away with money. Bird Wang covered his cheeks, feeling that his teeth were about to be knocked out. Don't you want to have the ability to fight in the shortest possible time? Then go straight to actual combat training, and, if you want to fight, the most important thing is to first learn to be beaten, learn to endure pain, and learn to keep calm in battle. Frank, who was wearing gloves, shouted and threw his fist at him. His aura was as ferocious as a hunting tiger, which was daunting. Wang Bert backed away in fright while parrying with his arms, but after only a few punches, his arm was so painful that he couldn't lift it up. Then, of course, he was punched in the face again, and he fell to the ground in a dizzying manner. With a loud bang. I don't want to make money from you. If you give up, I will give you a month of regular training, but if you want to make it fast, you have to endure such pain, or in other words, torture. Frank said, actually, it's not as good as my training for recruits. At least, I haven't started swearing. Who do you look down on? Go on. Bert Wong grinned and said with an ugly smile, he doesn't want to be a vampire who hides and can't see the sun all his life. Since he has come to this Marvel world, whether he can live or not, he must live wonderfully. In this way, it is worthwhile to come here by yourself. Life is as splendid as summer flowers, and death is as quiet and beautiful as autumn leaves. A glimmer of admiration flashed in Frank's eyes, and he shouted, then get up, don't lie there like a bitch. Bert Wong endured the pain, struggled to get up, and said solemnly, Instructor, what you said is suspected of sexism. There is still time to talk nonsense, it seems that the training intensity is not enough. Frank snorted coldly and stepped up his training. Then, Bert Wong almost went to the hospital. Frank wanted Bert Wong to go to the hospital, but Bert Wong himself refused. He just dealt with it briefly and went home to drink. The blood is gone. That's right, drinking blood. Vampires are not completely useless, their resilience is far stronger than ordinary people. The only problem is that blood is too unpleasant to drink. Wang Bot is thinking about whether it can be made into various dishes to achieve the same effect, such as blood sausage, blood porridge, blood prosperous and so on. Is he overtrained? His physique is much worse than those of the recruits. Frank was a little hesitant. He was easy to get used to as soon as he trained. There have been cases of recruits being trained in the hospital before, a lot. Tomorrow, no, reduce the training a little bit the day after tomorrow. As for tomorrow, he probably won't come. Frank thought to himself, but it was beyond his expectations. The next night, Bert Wong came running in the same spirit as yesterday, and asked impatiently, what are you training today? Frank was speechless. He confirmed two things. First, this guy's resilience is really good, and he doesn't look like a human being. Second, this guy does have special hobbies. Frank yelled, Rookie, what are you doing standing there? Hurry up and run out, I'm going to run 20 laps today. Yes, instructor. Bert Wong replied loudly, just like that. For the next month or so, he received Frank's training at night, and during the day he learned about this strange world on the internet. There are still many differences between this world and the movie. For example, this world has the Osborne Group, which is not small in scale. The Osborne Group is a concentration camp for villains, but it doesn't matter. I'm not a gentleman anyway. Fortunately, there are no mutants in this world, otherwise it would be troublesome. Bert Wong thought to himself, if mutant movies were also added, the world would be really lively. That night, Jenny came to visit again. She looked at Wang Bert at the door and was very surprised. Why are you completely different, like a different person? More than a month ago, Wang Bot was thin and weak, and his whole person looked very cold, but now, he is obviously much stronger, and even the coldness on his body has been diluted a lot. Fighting with someone and getting swollen. Wang Bert said casually, why are you here again? The $20,000 has been spent so quickly. Jenny said dissatisfiedly, am I the kind of woman who comes to you just to get money? Wang Bert nodded very seriously, yes. You really know me. Jenny laughed, and she said, don't worry, I won't ask you for your money in vain this time. I will take you to the blood banquet hosted by Boss Dickon. Not only will there be a lot of blood, but there will also be living people for us to enjoy. Hey, maybe you will be attracted by beautiful women. Blood banquets are always messy. Blood feast. Wang Bit's eyes flashed, and he asked, didn't you say we have an agreement with humans that we can't hunt living people? Boss Dickon doesn't care about any agreement. Of course, he won't go too far. Usually, he sends beautiful women to seduce some men who are dizzy when they see women like you. Jenny giggled and said, of course, they won't have such good luck to become vampires, they will only be food. Bert, do you know that I'm good to you? If you don't want money, I'll feel better. Wang Bert snorted and asked, when do you leave? Jenny said, just now, John is waiting for you below, and we'll go when we're ready. Good. Wang Bert went back to the house and took everything he needed, such as a Glock 17, purchased illegally in Hell's Kitchen, a special silver-plated flying knife, a small homemade smoke bomb, etc. This month's cruelty the training has made him grow a lot. Although he is still not a master, he is no longer a weakling without the power of his hands. Soon, Bert Wang got into John's car and set off. While driving, John showed off to Bert Wang, this time, I should be able to see Quinn, the right hand of Boss Dickon. If it weren't for me, a vampire like you would have no chance. See him. Quinn. Wang Bert said, John, what are the strengths of Quinn and Dickon? Are they the same as us, similar to ordinary people? Of course not, they are all elite vampires. Elite? Yes, elites. They are very fast. Unless they are stabbed in the heart and head by silverware, they will not die easily. John said with admiration, once a pure-blood vampire is an adult www.mtlnovel.com, it will have elite-level strength, and we mixed blood, only outstanding people like Dickon and Quinn are elites. Wang Bert asked, how can I become an elite vampire? Just you want to be elite. John looked disdainful, and Jenny laughed, as if hearing a big joke. Wang Bert said, ask whatever you want. There are only two ways to become an elite. One is to devour a lot of blood from living people. It is a living person. John said, the other is to devour the blood of high-ranking vampires, such as pure-blood vampires. Of course, no one dares to do this. Offending pure blood is a capital offense. Every day I shouted to overthrow the pure blood, and it turned out to be like this. Wang Bert secretly despised, and soon, they came to the door of a freezer in Brooklyn. John pointed to the symbol composed of 3 bars and some patterns on the wall of the freezer and said, that is the mark of Boss Dickon. In our blood family, only pure-blood vampires have a mark, but Boss Dickon is an exception. Jenny said admiringly, Boss Dickon is an exception, of course, there are even pure-bloods working for him. Wang Bert thought to himself, in the hearts of mixed blood, Dickon Firth's reputation is really high, but why does he have so much blood to hold a blood banquet? Then, the 3 of them got out of the car and walked towards the freezer. Because Bert Wang was a stranger, he was allowed to enter the freezer together after showing his teeth. The bar where the blood banquet was held was hidden behind the freezer, and most people would not find. Looking at the pig corpses in the freezer, Wang Bert frowned slightly. The beginning of the Blade Warrior seemed to be in the freezer, right? Could it be so coincidental? Be careful, if I die in the hands of the blade so inexplicably, who am I going to cry to? Wang Bert thought to himself, and soon, he followed John and the others into the bar. It was very dark, with only a few light sources. Hundreds of vampires danced indulgently to the loud music, and at the same time, there were all kinds of unbearable scenes. It's disgusting. Wang Bert didn't like the fun, and was worried about the blade fighters, so he found a quiet and safe corner to be a beautiful man. As for John and Jenny, they had already gone to dance, and Jenny even hooked up with 2 men. After a while, 3 men were brought into the bar by 3 beautiful beauties. The 3 men were completely unaware of the danger. They danced wildly with the 3 beauties, and didn't even notice that the vampires around were drooling when they looked at them. No, it's already drooling. Since vampires and humans reached an agreement, most vampires live on blood bags, and the blood of living people is often only enjoyed by pure-blooded gentlemen. Deacon Firth really knows how to buy people's hearts, hold blood feasts, and bring in living people, but why haven't humans discovered it, and it's not so secretive? Wongbird was a little puzzled. Soon, accompanied by the sound of passionate music, all the showers above were turned on, and the spray inside was not water, but blood. What? The vampires roared excitedly. While drinking blood, they wiped their bodies with blood. At this time, the 3 men drenched in blood finally realized what was wrong. Are these people crazy? Before waiting for the 3 men to do anything, the vampires above them surrounded them, and even opened their mouths to show their fangs. Seeing that the 3 screaming men were about to die tragically, at this moment, a sudden voice came from the entrance. There was a bang of a gunshot. Everyone turned their heads and saw that several vampires were rapidly turning grey. At the entrance, stood a cool black guy wearing a black trench coat, a metal vest, black sunglasses, and a shotgun. The originally noisy bar instantly quieted down. After a while, someone shouted in shock, "My God, it's the Blade! Blade, Sunwalker!" The vampires were like frightened rabbits, screaming and fleeing in all directions. Yes, hundreds of vampires faced a cool black guy, and all the hundreds of vampires escaped. Blade grinned, his mouth full of white teeth, and then he unceremoniously pulled the trigger of the shotgun, only to hear a bang, and several vampires turned to ashes. Once an ordinary vampire is hit by the silver marbles, the blood on the body will dissolve quickly, and then from the skin to the flesh, from the flesh to the bone, the whole body is quickly annihilated by ashes. In a sense, it is quite environmentally friendly. The Blade is really here. Wongbird couldn't help swallowing his saliva, and immediately fled from the side passage to the 2nd floor, which showed his foresight. Compared with other vampires, he was obviously not in danger. Blade's mother was bitten by Deacon Firth when she was pregnant, causing him to become half human and half vampire after birth. Later, he became a vampire hunter under the guidance of his teacher Whist, and the vampire he killed was frightened and talked about its discoloration. The most vicious curse between vampires is "I wish you meet a Blade warrior." The Blade fighter has all the advantages of vampires, but does not have the weaknesses of vampires, and can even act in the sun, so he is also called the Sunwalker. Naturally, this bar has security guards. When they heard the movement, they rushed out against the flow of people. One of the security guards shot the Blade fighter with a micro dash and shouted loudly, "I'm not afraid of you, I'm not afraid of you. Does this look like you're not afraid?" Wongbird, who was hiding on the 2nd floor to watch the battle, couldn't help but complain. The knife edge sideways dodged the security guard's bullet, and then fired a shot at the security guard. With a bang, the security guard flew out backwards, and disappeared into ashes in the air. At this time, more and more security guards rushed out with guns. After the Blade fired 2 shots and killed a lot of security guards, they threw the shotguns without bullets at the security guards, and then rushed in at an alarming speed with both feet. Among the security guards. Immediately afterwards, Dao Feng pulled out the long silver sword behind him and swung it quickly, only to see the sword light flickering, and the security guards were cut into ashes by the silver sword one by one, and they were not opponents at all. This is not only because the speed of the Blade is too fast, but also because the security guards will die if they are hit anywhere. The weakness of vampires is too obvious. Is this an elite vampire? It's amazing. Wongbird was stunned. This is completely different from the movie. Although the Blade can hit in the movie, it is only at the level of a normal person. After image. It seems that we can't measure the strength of superheroes with movies in the future, otherwise we don't know how they will die. Wang Bert thought to himself, and at the same time his eyes were a little hotter. He wanted to have such a speed too. Who has never thought of possessing extraordinary strength? At this time, all the vampires had fled except those who were killed, and the blade was about to continue chasing and killing. A blond man with a beard and 3 fully armed security guards arrived late, and when he saw the blade, he yelled, "Blade, it's you again. Quinn, this time, you can't escape." Blade said coolly. Quinn didn't talk nonsense, he directly raised his hand to shoot at Blade, and shouted at the same time, "Kill him." The 3 fully armed security guards immediately raised their assault rifles and fired at the Blade. They were obviously more professional than the previous security guards. At least, if the Blade didn't move, their bullets could hit the Blade. Of course, it was impossible for the Blade to stay still. He turned around and hid behind the pillar, then turned out from the other side, and slammed it hard. A silver double-head spiral flying knife spun out at extreme speed, leaving a wound on each of the 3 security guards' arms, and flew back to his hand. But what surprised the Blade was that the 3 security guards did not turn into ashes, but turned their guns to shoot at the Blade. If he hadn't hid quickly, he would have been shot. "Ha, Blood Clan!" Blade scolded. Quinn laughed loudly, and shouted, "Knife, how arrogant you are this time." Dao Feng smiled disdainfully, took a flash bomb from his waist and threw it out. The light flashed. The 3 Ha Bloods were better, but the eyes hurt. But Quinn screamed, although there was no ultraviolet light in the flash bomb, but the vampire, they are all afraid of light. In fact, it was not only Kun En who was injured, Wang Bat's eyes were also severely hit, tears streaming down his cheeks. At the same time as the flashbang was lit, the Blade quickly rushed out from behind the pillar, and the blade flashed, and a security guard's arm fell off, blood flowing. The other 2 security guards heard the sound and immediately turned their guns, but it was still too late. The Blade swiped with a backhand from the necks of the 2 security guards. The 2 security guards covered their necks with their hands, but they could not stop the blood from escaping without money. "Quinn, it's your turn." The Blade flicked the blood on the knife, and said coolly to Kun En. Kun En threw the gun at the Blade, then turned and fled back. The knife edge immediately chased after them. The speed of the 2 of them was extremely fast, just like driving at an acceleration. Wang Bert on the 2nd floor endured the pain in his eyes and followed. In a hall, Quinn was caught up by the Blade, and the 2 fought. Although Quinn was also an elite vampire, he was obviously not the opponent of the Blade, and he was hit a few times soon. However, he was an elite vampire and was not ashamed. "Ash annihilation, but the wound is relatively large. We can't delay time, we must fight quickly." Seizing a chance, Blade drenched a tube of red potion on Quinn. He didn't know what material this potion was. As soon as he poured it on, the flames burst out of Quinn's body, and in the blink of an eye, he changed. He became a burning man, screaming and rolling on the ground in pain. Blade held the silver knife indifferently, intending to cut off Quinn's head after he fell unconscious. Even an elite vampire would still die if his head was cut off by silverware. "Do not move." Just at this moment, a few policemen suddenly rushed in and pointed their guns at the Blade. The Blade scolded, turned around and ran away reluctantly. He was ruthless in killing vampires, but he would never kill innocent people indiscriminately. Several policemen chased them out immediately. At this time, Quinn had been burned into a coma, and Wang Bert couldn't help but be overjoyed. The reason why he followed was to wait for this time. Just when Wang Bert wanted to act, Jenny's terrified voice suddenly came from behind him. "Bert, what are you doing here?" Wang Bert was startled and turned around in a hurry. Seeing Jenny and John walking over with panicked faces, he was speechless. So many vampires died just now, but neither of them died. Is there any reason? Perhaps to give me a chance to take revenge. Wang Bat's eyes flashed, and he whispered to the 2 of them, Our chance has come. Quinn was burned to a charred corpse. Quinn was burned to a charred corpse, what does it have to do with us? John was puzzled. He said, let's go quickly, God knows if the blade will come back. Jenny also said, yeah, hurry up. By the way, Bert, you have to compensate us. If we hadn't brought you here, we wouldn't have to be afraid of this. Do you still want money at this time? Bert was speechless, because these two people have low IQs, so he explained in detail, Kun is like this, the police will definitely send him to the hospital, and with his ruthless personality, he will definitely hunt him down to the hospital. Kun is afraid that he will be doomed. We secretly replaced Quinn's body, and when Quinn recovered, we could follow him to see Mr. Dickon, and then we could do whatever we wanted. John and Jenny's breathing immediately became fast. It was their dream to join Dickon Firth's team. They didn't think about anything else, and nodded repeatedly, yes, we have to save Boss Quinn. Bot rolled his eyes secretly. It seemed that other arguments could be omitted. He said directly, then let's get started. This job is difficult or not, and it is not easy. The reason why it is not difficult is because the police don't know the existence of vampires, and they think Quinn has been burned to death, so they don't care too much about such a corpse. Speaking of difficulty, it is because this work has to be done inside, not outside, which will attract the attention of the blade, and the blade must be watching outside now. This is also the reason why Bert Wong wants to exchange the body instead of stealing it. If the body is stolen, the blade will find out that something is wrong. At that time, Bert Wong might have a date with Dao Feng. Under Bert's command, John rushed in front of the police to find a man who had been tricked into being a blood bag before. After the knife came in, he hid in the toilet in fright, and kept shaking there. He didn't dare to come out at all. John find it. Because Bert Wong specially confessed, John didn't kill him, but just knocked him unconscious. As for why he didn't kill him, John didn't ask any more questions. He's completely on top now, and he just wanted to make a contribution to join Dickon Firth's command. Then, Bot sent Jenny to run over in front of the two policemen carrying the corpse, pretending to be frightened. Jenny was covered in blood, so the two policemen naturally wanted to chase after him to check what happened. As for the corpse, of course, he threw it away, and he wouldn't run away anyway. The corpse wouldn't run away, but it would be replaced. Bert Wong asked John to exchange the charred corpse of the unlucky man and Quinn. To be honest, the charred corpse was really disgusting, and the smell was even worse. He and John didn't have a plan, and would never do such a thing. The two exchanged the corpse as quickly as possible, put it in a bag, and then secretly went to the underground garage with the corpse. It didn't take long for Jenny to get rid of the two policemen and come back. This wouldn't cause any trouble, because there were many vampires who had escaped before in this building. After finishing everything, the three of them drove away quietly. Because there are many exits in this place, they were not found by the police. The three of them were very excited, because the good days are coming soon. Bert www.mtlnovel.com. You are too smart. Jenny excitedly wanted Prince Bert, but was avoided by Bert. He was not interested in this kind of stuff, and they were no longer worth using. The debt should be repaid. He, Bert, doesn't care about money, but his money is not so easy to get. This is an abandoned building in Hell's Kitchen. John put down Quinn's body, turned to Bert and said, Bert, you go outside to catch the wind and see if anyone will approach. Bert is a little speechless, and he has no brains in other places. How can he be so good at bullying people? This is obviously because I don't want to take credit with them, and then sit on an equal footing. Okay. Bot pretended to be dissatisfied but helpless and agreed. Then, he put his hand into his waist pocket to hold the flying knife, and whispered forward, by the way, I have something to say. John didn't notice anything wrong and asked casually, what's the matter? The thing is, it's time for you to hit the road. Wang Bot suddenly took out the flying knife and stabbed it forward, and it stabbed into John's waist very smoothly. John looked at Wang Bot in disbelief. Before he could say anything, his body quickly turned from waste to ash. What? Jenny screamed in shock. Wang Bo threw the flying knife with his backhand, and the flying knife spun into Jenny's chest. Easy. In other words, vampires are so weak, why should humans make an agreement with them? Wang Bot nodded with satisfaction, only excitement in his heart, no other negative emotions at all, just a vampire, not a human at all. After dealing with the two of them, he retrieved the flying knife, and Wang Bert focused his attention on Kun En, who was on the ground. He looked a little embarrassed. Shut up! That's right, Bert Wang brought Quinn here for only one purpose, to his blood and make himself an elite vampire. As for meritorious service, Bert Wang used it to fool John and Jenny. What is more important than strength? It's just that this charred corpse is really hard to say. Wang Bert hesitated for a moment, but he endured his disgust and showed his fangs, and put it on Quinn's neck. I will never eat burnt food again in my life. Bert Wang endured the discomfort and started sucking blood. Just take medicine, that kind of super bitter and super disgusting medicine. A vampire's blood is cold, and so is Quinn's blood, but for some reason, after drinking his blood, Wang Bert felt warm and comfortable all over his body, and this feeling made him involuntarily increase the strength of the absorption. With the absorption of Wang Bert, Quinn's body gradually became shriveled. The crisis of death made Quinn wake up from the coma. He struggled hard to get rid of Wang Bert, but was held down by Wang Bert. He could only keep roaring, but the sound became smaller and smaller, and finally disappeared completely. Wang Bert raised his head and shouted with his big mouth full of blood. He felt that he was full of power, and he could even kill a few tigers. The feeling of becoming stronger is really wonderful. At this moment, along with the sound of heavy footsteps, a figure walked in. He looked at the shriveled Quinn on the ground and said, I didn't expect Quinn to die by your hands. Wang Bert froze. He turned his head slowly, and saw Ku Ji Dao Feng looking at him expressionlessly. Wait, didn't I just be a little arrogant? Why did the blade come to me to slap me in the face in a blink of an eye? Bert Wang secretly complained, but he was not very afraid. He first stabbed the flying knife into Quinn's heart, causing it to be annihilated by ashes, and then stood up. Then, Wang Bot wiped the blood from his mouth and said to Dao Feng, then you should thank me, I helped you get rid of the enemy. Dao Feng pulled out the sword behind his back and said, no problem, I'll help you free now. Wang Bot complained, is that how you thank people? Dao Feng said coldly, being a vampire is very miserable. It is natural to thank you for helping you free yourself. What you said really makes sense. Bert Wang was speechless. If I remember correctly, in the movie, Blade's Edge used this reason to kill his mother, who also became a vampire. Wang Bert said, wait first, you killed me because I was a vampire, right? Then why don't you kill yourself, you are also a vampire. Blade said, I am a human being. Wang Bert said, you mean that your body is a vampire's body, but your heart is a human's heart? If you say that, I'm human too, and you shouldn't kill me. Blade said, you are not. Why am I not? After I became a vampire, I never sucked the blood of a living person, nor did I ever think about it. Compared to me, you seem to have sucked the blood of a living person. Wang Bert sneered, Blade, justice seems to be on my side. Blade was silent. Before he met Whist, he did the blood of a living person. He said, if you don't now, you will in the future. According to what you said, wouldn't it be possible to convict anyone who is caught on the street? After all, although he is not guilty now, he may not be guilty in the future. Wang Bert said disdainfully, you should know that there is a principle of presumption of innocence in the law, and it is appropriate to put it here. Blade was silent again, hesitating for a moment. He said, if you really don't the blood of living people, then I can let you go, but only if you accept my supervision. It seems that the Blade Warrior is not as cold as the legend. Wangbert smiled. He put his hand in the pocket of his jacket and asked, "Can I ask you 2 questions?" The Blade replied coolly, "What's the problem?" Wangbert asked, "How did you find it?" "I shouldn't have any flaws." Blade replied, "You're very cautious, but I did tricks on Quinn." "I see." Wangbert understood, and he asked again, the second question, "You still wear sunglasses at night? Are the sunglasses your body?" Dao's face was full of question marks. At this moment, Wangbot took out 2 homemade smoke bombs and threw them on the ground. The smoke quickly filled the air, and the surrounding area was white. The Blade immediately rushed into the smoke, but couldn't find Wangbert at all, and after a little delay, the smoke became thicker. After a while, Wangbert's voice came from the window, "Blade, Dickon Firth is engaged in a big conspiracy, I want to infiltrate them and investigate, we will meet again one day. Don't the blood of living people, otherwise, I won't let you go. Remember, the Blade is staring at you." Knife put the knife back into its sheath, and said coolly. Wangbert laughed and didn't answer, turned over and jumped off the 2nd floor, then got into John's car, and quickly left here. This Blade's Edge is quite interesting, but then again, Dao's Edge didn't go to the hospital, didn't he see the heroine? Wangbert blinked, and then put this matter behind him, it's none of his business. Dao Feng was upstairs looking at the leaving car, he couldn't help but touched his sunglasses. Wearing sunglasses at night seems a bit silly? Immediately, Dao Feng shook his head. What are you afraid of? Coolness is the most important thing. Blade rushed into the bar, Quinn disappeared. Hearing the report from his subordinates, Dickon Firth, who was wearing a shirt but unbuttoned, was furious, and he shouted, "Hurry up and send someone to look for it, and make sure to get Quinn back, and also, inform those Obloods, let them keep an eye on the hospital to see if any strange bodies come in, Quinn doesn't die so easily." "Yes, Mr. Dickon." When the vampires heard the order, they immediately left the building as fast as possible to run errands. Dickon walked back and forth angrily. Quinn was his general. Without him, many things would be difficult to do. At this moment, a female vampire with blonde hair and white clothes said, "Dickon, let's set a trap and get rid of the Blade? During this time, he has killed a lot of us." This female vampire is called Mercury. Although she is a pure-blood vampire, she follows Dickon and works for Dickon. Dickon's eyes flashed fiercely, and he said, "Sunwalker can't die. I have deciphered the holy code of blood race. I need Sunwalker and 12 pure-blood elders." Mercury's eyes lit up, and he asked excitedly, "Dickon, are you finally going to take action against those timid and immortal old guys? It's time for them to dedicate themselves to the great cause of the blood race." Dickon said, "I have a solution to the Blade. I have a killer in my hand. As long as I need it, it is easy to catch him. Quicksilver, you can recruit some good players. We need a lot of people." "Good." Mercury agreed without hesitation, and fighting with pure blood naturally requires a lot of manpower. This world will eventually belong to their blood clan, and the only one who can lead them to victory is Dickon Firth. Mercury believes this, and so do other vampires. Dickon Firth, the vampire's hope. In the training ground, Wangbert held a wooden stick and attacked Frank as fast as lightning. Even Frank was constantly defended by his high-speed attack. However, Bert Wong couldn't control his speed. Frank seized an opportunity and punched him in the cheek, staggering him 2 steps, and almost fell. Wangbot said depressedly, "Instructor, you agreed not to slap your face. What's wrong with your speed? Why is it suddenly so much faster?" Frank was very puzzled. If it weren't for the fact that the opponent's fighting ability was too poor and he couldn't control the speed, it would not be easy for him to take down the opponent. It's just that it's not easy. It's not that you can't win. In the competition, the opponent can take advantage, but in the battle of life and death, the opponent must die. Eat something and evolve. Wong Bird said, Instructor, let's come again, I want to master new powers in a short time. Okay. You attack. Although Frank knew that the other party had some problems, he didn't ask any more questions. Because of Wong Bird's improvement in physique, not only Wong Bird himself was exhausted, but Frank was out of breath. He sat on the ground and took off his gloves while saying, I think I need to pay more. Then add it. Wong Bird laughed, if his plan is successful, money is not a problem at all, if it fails, then there is no chance of using money in the future. Frank said with a smile, just joking, as much as I said before, it is as much. If I don't show up for a long time and the phone can't get through, you remember to visit my house, I have something for you. Wong Bird thought of something and said, he was going to leave something in the relic to prevent Frank from turning into a punisher. Frank glanced at Wong Bird and reminded, if you have money, you can ask some special people to do things for you. In this country, there are very few things that money can't do. Speaking of which, Frank sighed secretly in his heart. Even a hero in the army like him still takes private jobs for money. To be honest, he is a little ashamed. What I want to do, other people can't get along. Wong Bird shook his head. What did he think of? He asked Frank, Instructor, if I want to get some special weapons, who should I turn to? Frank frowned and asked, what kind of special weapon? Wong Bird said, for example, ultraviolet grenades and installing ultraviolet spotlights on guns, etc. Ultraviolet rays? Are you trying to kill vampires? Frank complained, these things are completely useless to remodel, right? Maybe it's killing vampires. Wong Bird laughed again, and he said, Instructor, do you have such a way? You need to develop these two things, it will take a little time, Frank said, I know someone in the logistics department, so I can ask you if anyone is doing personal work. Why are so many people in the military engaged in private work? This America is about to die. Bert Wong secretly complained, and he said, then ask me, money is not a problem. By the way, I also need a pair of UV protective clothes, but it can't hinder my movement. It has to look like a tights. Frank couldn't help but say, although I shouldn't ask, I'm really curious, what exactly do you want to do? Wong Bird said very honestly, I'm going to fight vampires to save the world. Watch less popcorn movies, it affects the brain. Frank stood up and said, have you rested yet? Go to practice guns after resting. You won't see much improvement in melee combat in a short time, but as long as you shoot enough bullets, you will improve quickly. Okay, let's practice shooting. Wong Bird also stood up. In terms of shooting, he is still a little confident. After becoming an elite vampire, his eyesight and reaction ability have improved a lot. In the warehouse of a bar, a cowboy-dressed owner looked at Wong Bird and asked, Bert Wong? I remember you were John's ATM, what about John? He took me to visit the blood banquet a few days ago, and then the blade came. Bert Wong replied with a blank face, some time ago, he met a lot of vampires with John, which is why he kept John and Jenny alive for so long. It's unfortunate, may heaven have no blades. The cowboy boss said something insincere, and then asked, you also want to join the team of Boss Dickon? We don't accept waste, we want good players. Next, we have a big move. Wong Bird glanced at the cowboy boss, and suddenly pulled out Glock from his waist and fired a shot at the decorative wolf head in the warehouse, accurately hitting the middle of the wolf head's eyebrows, forming a small smoking hole. The cowboy boss was taken aback www.mentalnovel.com and stared at Wong Bird in dissatisfaction. This young man is unreliable. You can't tell me when you show your marksmanship? I don't know that the elderly can't be scared. Believe it or not, I lie down and ask you to pay for mental damage? But then again, this kid's gun is very fast, he can be called a fast shooter. Wongbird shrugged, put away the gun like a cowboy, and then said, I thought you were really a cowboy. 50 years ago, but not now. The cowboy boss said angrily, $1,000 for a wolf head, no problem, right? On the old beauty's side, money is really the most important thing. Bert Wong secretly complained, and he asked, can I join Boss Dickens' team? You can just lose money. The cowboy boss said, what did he think of, and asked in a puzzled way, why are you being bullied by John and Jenny with such a good marksmanship? Wongbird said, without them, I would not be able to integrate into the vampire society. It's smart. The cowboy boss said, okay, you live in the bar first, and when you recruit a few more people, I'll take you to see Miss Quicksilver. Bert Wong was puzzled, Miss Quicksilver? Isn't that the boss Dickon? The cowboy boss said admiringly, Miss Mercury is in charge of recruiting people. She is a pure-blood vampire. Only Boss Dickon can make pure-blood vampires work for him. That's why we have to follow him. Wongbird laughed, and just like that, he blended into Dickon Firth's team, and now he is a glorious miscellaneous soldier under Miss Quicksilver. There is no problem with the miscellaneous soldiers. The key is to be able to infiltrate the altar where the ceremony is held. In other words, will Dickens' mutiny be as easy as in the movie? In the Blade Runner movie, Deacon Firth leads a group of vampires to easily capture the Speaker of the Vampire Council, Gao Tianu, and then use the traditional vampire sunbath to reduce him to ashes. After that, Deacon Firth threatened the council with 2 fangs of Gao Tianu. The 12 arrogant elders admitted on the spot and surrendered in an all-round way. In the end, Deacon Firth became a sacrifice. The whole process is as simple as playing a house. When I was watching the movie, Wongbird complained about it. This pure-blood vampire is too useless, right? And this rant, Wongbird said it again in reality, because the process in reality is exactly the same as in the movie. In just a few days, Deacon Firth took control of the entire North American Blood Clan. Only North America, the Blood Clan is divided into regions, and there is no one unified. It's too simple, isn't it? Is pure blood so useless? Wongbird couldn't help but asked his captain, the former cowboy boss, that when Gao Tianu was arrested, because he was a newcomer, he could only follow him outside, so he didn't know what happened inside. You're young, aren't you? Cowboy boss James said, actually, everyone can't stand the Vampire Council for a long time. We are vampires, the top of the food chain, why should we obey the rules of human beings? The people I'm talking about are not only mixed-blood vampires, but also many pure bloods. Wongbird asked, you mean, there is someone in pure blood helping Boss Dickon? James nodded affirmatively, yes, even if you don't help, you will stand by and watch. This is the general trend. The 12 elders knew this before surrendering. Looks like we vampires should be happy. Wongbird agreed, but he still had some doubts in his heart. Is it really that simple? The Speaker and the 12 elders should be a little loyal, but they have no resistance at all? Is this the legend that all reactionaries are paper tigers? Our good days are coming soon. James said with anticipation, not only him, but also other mixed races, they seem to see a bright future calling them. Wongbird laughed at this, vampires die when they see the light, dear. After successfully controlling the vampires, Deacon Firth began to deal with Blade, who had caused him a lot of trouble recently. He first led someone to raid Blade's lair, beat Blade's teacher and assistant Wits seriously, and bit him, and wait in the vampire mansion for the Blade to come. The Blade did not come to the door unexpectedly. The vampire prepared by Deacon Firth was not his opponent at all. He killed hundreds of vampires from the bottom of the building to the top of the building. But in the end, Blade was caught, because Deacon Firth had an ace in his hand, the mother of Blade. Blade always thought that his mother was dead, but he didn't know that she was resurrected as a vampire, and became Dickon's woman, and because he was too shocked, he was caught. After that, it was the highlight. Dickon Firth would use the Sunwalker blade and the blood of the 12 elders to summon the blood god on the altar to fuse with him, so that he could become a blood god who was not afraid of sunlight, leading vampires and humans to fight to the death. This altar was left a long time ago. It is very tall and magnificent. The walls are covered with strange runes, which looks very mysterious, and the ground is full of white jade, which looks very noble. After Deacon Firth cracked the holy code, he spent a lot of time refinishing the altar and installing a light source, so the altar looked bright. However, after all, it was the altar of vampires. A feeling of. As a glorious miscellaneous soldier, Wang Bert was not qualified to enter the altar and could only guard outside, but he used an invincible method to easily infiltrate the interior of the altar, bribing James. James explained, "Don't go around, if I miss the big event of Boss Dickon, I can't keep you." Wang Bot smiled and said, "Don't worry, I just went in to see it, that would be a blood god." "That's good." James nodded first, then asked a little tangled, "Speaking of which, after we succeed, will these dollar bills still be useful? Is this the beginning of a sweet dream?" Wang Bot secretly complained. He said, "You can return it to me if you don't. Dream, hurry up and patrol there, don't stand." James immediately said with a stern face. Bert Wang shrugged and patrolled with an automatic rifle. It only took one day for Wang Bo to detect the terrain of the altar, and quietly transported his props. Now, everything is only waiting for the next day's ceremony. The next night, near 12 o'clock, Dickon Firth locked the blade into the iron torture tool above the altar. The iron torture tool was full of spikes. Once closed, the blood of the blade accompanied his misery called into the prearranged ditch, and then all the way down, filling the runes on the wall. "Let's start." Dickon Firth waved his hand excitedly, and the vampires immediately brought the 12 elders in and tied them to 12 pillars with special runes engraved on them. A black elder roared, "Dickon, the blood is just a legend, you won't get anything. Only you idiots think it's a legend." Dickon looked disdainful. His decades-long dream was finally coming to an end. At that time, no one could restrain him, including the blood family, including. At the same time, Wang Bert came to the place where the blade was imprisoned. There were 3 people guarding here, 2 well-armed vampires, and Blade's mother. When the heroine came to save people in the movie, it seemed that no one was there. Why are there so many now? Wearing a UV-blocking tights, carrying a bag, and wearing sunglasses, Wang Bert took out a large UV lamp from the bag while complaining. It was ordered by Frank's colleague. It's a pity that Frank's colleagues failed to develop the UV grenade, otherwise the chances of winning this war would be even greater. Without wasting time, Wang Bert pointed the ultraviolet light at a vampire at the door, turned it on, and a purple light shone on the vampire's face. The other vampire was startled and hurriedly looked towards the place where the light came from, but collided with the purple light hidden, and then, without any accident, he also turned into grey. The female vampire inside was disturbed. She was about to shout when Wang Bert pointed the off ultraviolet light at her and said, "Madam, don't shout out, or you will die." The female vampire Vanessa asked angrily, "Who are you to be an enemy of Dickon? I am alone." Wang Bot smiled and said, "Now, please let your son out." I said, "You are too cruel, you even harm your own son." "I'm helping him, he's a vampire, not a human, and so are you." Vanessa shouted, "When Dickon becomes the blood god, I, him, and the 3 of Blade's Edge will be able to reunite as a family." Family reunion? Yes, in a sense, Dickon is Blade's stepfather. Bert Wang didn't even know how to complain, but Marvel likes to play killing relatives. Star-Lord and Thor have both killed him. He said, "Stop talking nonsense, and quickly turn on the torture tool." Although Vanessa was unwilling, she could only do it obediently. After all, Bert Wang's ultraviolet light was too threatening, and even at her speed, she might not be able to avoid it. Under Wang Bert's gaze, Vanessa turned the torture tool, then opened the mechanism, and the wounded blade fell to the ground weakly, panting, her red eyes full of madness, like a bloodthirsty beast. This is the blood addiction of Dao Feng. Wang Bot was already prepared. He threw a few blood bags in the bag and shouted, "Bao Feng, hurry up and drink, there is still a tough battle to fight." Seeing the blood, the blade immediately jumped on it, biting open the package like a wild beast with its fangs and sucking it frantically. Vanessa saw this and said, "You can't fight Dickon, and now there is still a way to survive by surrendering. That's our business, you don't have to worry about it." Wang Bird smiled, and soon, the blade sucked 6 blood bags, and the food intake was quite amazing, and the wounds on his body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye as the blood was sucked in. Obviously, his healing ability is better than that of elite vampires. Much stronger. The blood addiction was satisfied, and the madness in Dao Feng's eyes gradually receded. He wiped the blood from his mouth, stood up and asked Wang Bert, "Who are you?" "I said, we will meet." Wang Bert smiled slightly, took out a micro-punch and a short knife from his bag and threw them to the blade, saying, "I made this myself, the bullets and the short knife are all silver-plated." "It's you." Dao Feng recognized Wang Bert, he caught Wei Chong and the short knife, but looked at Wang Bert's sunglasses. Wang Bert complained, "Sure enough, the sunglasses are your body? UV rays." Dao Feng was a little disappointed, he put Wei Chong on his waist, threw the short knife twice, and said, "This knife is average, I'm going to get my knife back." Wang Bert rolled his eyes and said, "You don't know how to speak, why haven't you been beaten to death yet?" "Because the only person who can talk to me is a bad old man worse than me." Thinking of the bitten wrist, a trace of sadness flashed in Blade's eyes, but he immediately became firm. He took the knife, turned his head to look at Vanessa, and said in a low voice, "Mother." Vanessa was a little panicked, she begged, "I'm your mother, you won't kill me, will you? I want to relieve your pain." Blade said sadly, "He really thinks so, and he really intends to do it." "No, you can't do that." Vanessa turned around and fled back, the blade immediately chased after him, and the two quickly fought. Although Vanessa is also an elite vampire, she has almost never fought, and is not the opponent of Blade's Edge at all, and was quickly pressed against the wall by Blade's Edge. Dao Feng raised the short knife, and his eyes flashed a look of unbearableness, but he immediately became determined. Wang Bot couldn't stand it any longer, and said, "Cao Feng, even if you stun her, this kind of thing, even if you want to do it, you shouldn't do it." Blade hesitated and knocked Vanessa unconscious with the handle. In fact, his heart wasn't really that hard. Wang Bert said, "Okay, now it's time to deal with Dickon Firth. If you want him to become a blood god, it will be troublesome." Blade placed Vanessa carefully, then turned to look at Wang Bert, and asked, "What's your purpose?" "Of course I have a purpose, but my purpose does not hinder you." Wang Bert smiled. He walked to Blade's side, handed over the UV light, and said, "This UV light can be changed from flashlight mode to bulb mode, which is very effective for those vampires." Blade took over the ultraviolet light, looked at Wang Bert and said, "I know you want to use me, I don't care. Killing vampires is my responsibility, but if you become a vampire, I will kill you as well." Wang Bert solemnly promised, "I am a human being, and I will never be a vampire." "Good." Blade didn't talk nonsense, nodded coolly, and came to the window with the ultraviolet light. He looked at Dickon Firth and a group of vampires who were cheering below, changed the ultraviolet light to bulb mode, and then took the ultraviolet light in his left hand. "Take the microchung in the right hand, and jump on the railing with both feet." "Dickon Firth!" The Blade shouted loudly and jumped down from the height of the 5-story building. The purple light suddenly filled the hall, and more than a dozen ordinary vampires immediately let out shrill screams, as if they were splashed with sulfuric acid. They were bubbling with smoke and quickly melted away. Even the elite vampires and the 12 elders had melting marks on their faces, looking extremely miserable. "Blade! Kill him and break the lamp!" Dickon roared in rage, and the 4 elite vampires who could still move immediately took out their pistols and endured the pain to shoot upwards. As for ordinary vampires, there is no way to shoot at this time, they are already dying. Although the 4 vampires fired, but because of the presence of purple light, they couldn't aim at all. The blade fell on the ground unscathed, rolled around and stopped. Then, the blade threw the ultraviolet light upwards. www.mtlnovel.com raised the microcharge and shot at Dickon. Dickon and the others immediately hugged their heads and ran away in a panic. One of them was shot in the calf, and one appeared directly whole. At this time, those ordinary vampires had been annihilated by the purple light, and the rifles on their bodies fell to the ground with a crackle. The blade rolled to dodge, and shot at an elite vampire with a gun. The elite vampire was shot in the unfortunate heart, screamed and disappeared into ashes. "Damn, turn off the lights first!" Dickon hid behind a pillar and shouted. The pure-blood vampire Mercury who was following him immediately raised his hand and shot and shattered the falling ultraviolet light. Without the light, all the vampires were relieved and did not have to be hurt all the time. "Dickon, the 12 elders are injured and cannot fight here, otherwise they may be killed by stray bullets." The water gun fired 2 shots at the blade, turned back and shouted to Dickon, who gritted his teeth and said, "Get out of here, call in other people, and destroy the blade together." "Yes." The few remaining vampires immediately protected Dickon and fled, and the blade naturally chased after him. This time, the altar was empty, and there were only 12 injured vampire elders left. "It's easier than you think." Wang Bot jumped down from the 5th floor one by one. When the 12 injured elders saw someone coming, they hurriedly said, "Save us, we can give you anything you want." Bert Wang didn't pay any attention to the elders who were offering sacrifices. He stood in the middle of the altar and looked up at the ceiling. "Then there seems to be lightning strikes." Bert Wang was thinking about it when, at this moment, several vampires suddenly rushed in from the side. Dickon's prediction was right. Apart from the blade, there are other people who got in. "Who are you to dare to harm Dickon?" The vampires who rushed in were led by the somewhat disfigured pure-blood vampire Mercury. When she saw the masked Wang Bert, she immediately shouted angrily. Wang Bert took off his sunglasses, put them in the pocket of his jacket, then pulled off the mask, sighed, and said, "Miss Mercury, you really make me sad. I am your subordinate, and you don't know me." Bert." Behind Quicksilver, James shouted in disbelief. Quicksilver turned his head and asked with a frown, "Do you know him?" "Me?" James stammered, "So to speak of knowing, is he dead?" "What are you waiting for, James? It's you who brought me to join Dickon's command. It's you who let me, who could only guard outside, enter the altar. Do you think they'll let you go? Hurry up!" As Wang Bert spoke, he took out a micro-dash from behind and shot at a few people. The 2 vampires were hit by bullets and turned to ashes on the spot. The Quicksilver sword swung horizontally, blocking an incoming bullet with a bang, and then suddenly appeared in front of Wang Bert like a phantom, slashing towards his neck like a knife. As expected of pure blood, so fast. Wang Bert didn't hide, he directly pulled the trigger of the micro-punch to shoot, looking like he was dead together. This is taught by Frank. On the battlefield, the more you are afraid of death, the faster you will die. Mercury had to dodge Wang Bert's bullet sideways, which caused her knife to deviate from the direction and slashed in front of Wang Bert, creating a long wound on her chest and clothes. This injury is not serious for Wang Bot, because Mercury used an ordinary knife, not a silver knife. This is normal. Which vampire would bring a weapon to restrain himself by his side? Except for Wang Bert and Blade. Although the injury is not serious, it is very painful. Fortunately, Wang Bert has undergone strict training. He endured the pain and raised his clenched left hand toward Mercury. Called, the body begins to dissolve rapidly from the skin. This is silver powder, which Wang Bert quietly grabbed when he put the sunglasses into his pocket. Who told you to wear so little? Wang Bert unceremoniously pulled the trigger, the bullet tilted on Mercury's body, Mercury screamed and flew backwards, but because he missed the key, he didn't die, he just fell into a coma on the ground. When Bert Wang was dealing with Mercury, the former cowboy James shot down the other two vampires with a gun and shot them off their arms. However, the two vampires were not dead, and they cursed in the blood. "Hurry up and help me get rid of them!" James shouted loudly. Bert Wang killed them with 2 shots. He was about to speak when blood suddenly dripped onto his forehead. At the same time, the sky outside was covered with dark clouds, which meant that the ceremony was about to begin. Wang Bert took off his hood and shouted, "James, stay around. After I become a blood god, I won't treat you badly. You can get as much money as you want. Do I still have a choice?" James smiled wryly. It was he who put Bert in. Dickon Firth would never let him go if he let him go, so he could only follow Bert, not for success, but for his life. Bert Wang had already given up on James. As the ceremony started, the altar became overcast, making people shudder. At this moment, a huge lightning bolt fell from the sky outside, and it went all the way down the device at the top of the altar, lighting up the runes on the wall one by one. Crackling sound. Soon, the lightning came to the position of the 12 pillars, and the runes on the 12 pillars were all lit up, mixed with the lightning, and bombarded the bound 12 elders. The 12 elders let out shrill screams at the same time, their bodies turned to ashes in lightning and runes, and there were only 12 blood-colored bats left. Bert's body looks extremely weird and evil. "Come on, I want to become a blood god. I want to live a wonderful life, I want to bask in the sun, and I want to go to the beach to watch bikinis." Bert Wang opened his hands and shouted loudly. James, who was standing beside him, was speechless. "Are you just pursuing this? Did Lao Tzu follow the wrong person?" "No, that's Dickens." At this moment, Mercury woke up. She looked at Wang Bert in the middle and roared unwillingly, but she couldn't stop all this from happening at all. "Not mine!" Wang Bert shouted, and 12 blood-colored bats flew into his body and merged with him. He roared in pain. The swirling blood looks very magical. At a certain corner of the altar, Dickon, who was being hunted down, sensed the initiation of the ceremony, and shouted at Dao Feng anxiously, "Blade, the ceremony has begun, let's hurry over, or someone will soon become a blood god." So that kid's purpose is to become a blood god. Blade suddenly realized, but he didn't leave, still waving a short knife at Dickon, he said, "That's none of my business, I just want to kill you now." Deacon held the blade of the sword to resist the attack, the previous trophy, and shouted, "After that guy becomes a blood god, he will be invincible in the world, then you will be dead, and he will definitely not let you go." Blade said stubbornly, "So what? I'll kill you first and then go over there. Why are you so brainless?" Dickon almost vomited blood in anger, he gritted his teeth and shouted, "Blade, I'm actually an undercover agent of SHIELD. My mission is to become a blood and find out whether the blood race has a nuclear bomb hidden in it. If we don't go over, humanity will be finished." Dickon's words surprised Blade's edge, but he still didn't stop attacking. "I don't know what you're talking about, and I've never heard the name of S.H.I.E.L.D. SHIELD is a spy agency under the World Security Council. It is responsible for managing strange events around the world. It is very secretive. It is normal for the Blade to not know." Dao Feng said with a look of disdain, "I have never heard of it, Dickon, you are really lying to me, which institution would have such a long name?" "I didn't lie to you, I'm really undercover." Dickon was a little mad. He was going to vomit blood when he came across this dead brain. He really didn't lie before. Although he had different intentions, he really joined SHIELD and became an undercover agent more than 10 years ago. At this moment, several vampires rushed out from the side, and it was obvious from the shock on their faces that they heard what Dickon said before. The savior of hybrid vampires is actually a human undercover? This is too absurd, isn't it? If true, all hybrid vampires would turn into a joke. Damn! Deacon didn't care about leaking the secret, and yelled loudly, "What are you doing? Just kill the blade for me." Dickon's prestige was too high, and a vampire did what he said subconsciously. Suddenly, a shuttle of bullets shot at the blade, and the blade hurriedly avoided him. In the hall, as the runes began to dim, Wongbird turned back into a human form. He closed his eyes and felt the surging power in his body. He had a feeling that he was invincible, and he couldn't wait to smile. This blood is stronger than expected, and he is immortal. Wongbird was overjoyed. The blood was actually a mass of blood essence left by Dracula, the ancestor of the vampire. Dracula's ability was immortality, absolutely immortality. Even the gods of the universe could not kill him, and the blood he left behind was also undead. Endowed Wongbird with the ability of immortality. Of course, Wongbo's immortality is not so powerful. His ability is called Blood River. Every time he devours a human or vampire, he will have an extra life. At the same time, Blood River can also help him fight. Powerful. In the movie, Dickon never devoured other people when they fought with Blade. Not only was his strength at the weakest, but he also had a life, that's why he died. Wongbird couldn't help shaking his head. Dickon, the unlucky one, obviously had the ability to die even if he wanted to, but because he became a blood god, he was too swollen and thought he could do it in seconds, but he killed himself. Learning from the past, I can't be like him. Wongbird's head, which was heated up because of the skyrocketing strength, cooled down instantly. After all, he didn't want to be the second Dickon. Just thinking about Dickon, Dickon rushed into the hall. He looked at Wongbird on the stage and roared, "The thief, the blood is mine." Bert Wong opened his eyes, red like a sea of blood. Dickon was shocked, but he was immediately replaced by anger. He shouted and jumped into the ring, wanting to kill Bert Wong and take back what belonged to him. Wongbird stood still, waiting for Dickon to slash down. He flashed like blood, appeared behind Dickon, and then stabbed Dickon's back with a knife with his hand. Dickon let out a scream, and the blood in his body was devoured wildly by Wongbird, which made him lose his strength quickly, and he couldn't even hold the sword, and fell to the ground with a bang. Dickon turned his head reluctantly, with 3-point resentment, 3-point exclamation and 3-point unwillingness, and asked, "This is the blood god? So powerful! This is the blood god!" Wongbird said in a deep and unpredictable way, "In fact, moving at a high speed consumes a lot of power. With his current situation, he can't use it a few times at all. The blood god is indeed very strong, but he must devour enough blood. Such a pity." Dickon reluctantly left a sentence. The blood was completely swallowed by Wongbird, and only a mummy was left casually thrown on the ground. Dickon! Mercury was in disbelief at first, then burst into tears. It was over, even the savior died, and the vampires were completely over. While James was shocked, his heart was ecstatic. He seemed to bet right. After devouring Dickon, some memories of Dickon's life appeared in Wongbird's mind. A glorious undercover. This is one of the abilities of the blood god. He can obtain the memory of the devoured. The stronger his strength, the more he can obtain. The current Wongbird can only obtain a small amount of profound memory, which is a good thing for him, because memory too much and he would definitely be schizophrenic. This guy is actually an undercover agent of SHIELD? No wonder no one came to stop him from holding a blood banquet. If I guessed correctly, the reason why he was able to overthrow pure blood so easily is because SHIELD was secretly helping. Wongbot suddenly realized, he felt the growing power in his body, nodded secretly, and swallowed Dickon, not only his strength became stronger, but he also gained a life. At this moment, the voice of the blade sounded, "This is your purpose, to become a blood god." Wang Bird turned his head and saw that Dao Feng was looking at him with fear. Obviously he saw the scene where he just devoured Dickon. Yes. Wang Bird didn't deny it. He took out the sunglasses from his pocket and threw them at the blade. He said, "However, I'm still human, I haven't changed, and I won't change." Blade took the sunglasses, put them on, and said coolly, "I hope so. Otherwise, I will kill you. You don't have this chance, and you are no longer my opponent." Wang Bird smiled proudly and said, "Don't talk about it, Blade, Shield has an ambush outside, you leave the secret passage with me, James, you also come with us." Blade asked, "Shield?" That deacon said before that he was an undercover agent of SHIELD. What kind of organization is that? Is Dickon an undercover agent of S.H.I.E.L.D? When Mercury heard this sentence, he was greatly shocked, and immediately shouted, "You are talking nonsense, this is impossible. He is the savior of our vampires. It's just a savior who was promoted by SHIELD, otherwise you think he's a half-blood, how could he have such great achievements?" Bert Wong smiled disdainfully, and said, "I don't have time to argue with you, Blade, go and take your mother with us, let's get out of here." Although SHIELD is an organization that guards human beings, it is estimated that it will not be too friendly to us, otherwise it will not let Dickon take care of you. Good. Blade nodded, picked up the sword, and jumped up to the second floor with both feet, then jumped to the opposite side with his strength, then jumped up, and soon reached the fifth floor, and after a while, he jumped down with Vanessa. Go! Wang Bird took the blade and fled towards the secret passage with James. This secret passage was actually arranged by Dickon secretly. He had long disagreed with SHIELD. He wants to be a god, the of the blood race. In fact, this is also the reason why SHIELD has not yet rushed in. Dickon made some arrangements to intercept them. "Let's go too!" Mercury shouted to the vampires who came. She would never be willing to die like this. She wanted to find out if Dickon was really an undercover agent. If it was, then their blood race would be a joke. When several vampires heard the words, they immediately picked up the Mercury www.mtlnovel.com and fled towards another secret passage under her command. The secret passage left by Dickon was protected by vampires. Seeing Wang Bird and others coming over, they hurriedly raised their guns and prepared to shoot. At this moment, a shadow of blood flashed. Wang Bird appeared among them, 5 fingers turned into blood, one swipe, blood spurts out, piercing their bodies like a spear, absorbing their blood. Seeing this scene, Blade's eyes narrowed, and he said to Wang Bird, "You are very strong now. The more blood the blood devours, the stronger it will be. If you want to attack me, now is the best time." Wang Bird shrugged and said, "When I absorb enough blood, no one can kill me, including you." When James heard the words, he looked at the blade vigilantly, and at the same time was speechless at Wang Bird's behavior. "How could you say such a thing? Is there a hole in the brain? You didn't commit a crime, why should I kill you? Just because you are a threat?" Blade shook his head. He said, "When you really commit a crime, I will kill you, no matter how strong you become. I am Blade, a vampire hunter, and I am only good at one thing in my life, and that is killing vampires. Blade, I like you more and more." Wang Bird laughed. If it was SHIELD, he would definitely kill a threatening target, but Blade's edge is not SHIELD. Blade said coolly, "I don't like men. It sounds like I like it." Wang Bird withdrew his 5 fingers, ignored the 5 vampires who had turned into mummified corpses, and took the blade with them to leave the altar that changed him drastically. Before he came, he was a vampire, and when he left, he was a blood god. Not long after the vampires left, a well-armed team of more than 50 people carefully entered the altar with guns. Traces. Damn Dickon. The 8th level agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., John Garrett, picked up the walkie-talkie and reported the situation to Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., who was in command behind the scenes. He said, "Director, your people have betrayed, and I need a helicopter to hunt them down. There's no need to arrest him." Dickon thought he could defect, but he was only dreaming. Fury's indifferent voice came over, "Search carefully and bring useful things with you. As for Dickon, I have a way to deal with him, otherwise I won't let him become a blood god." You really hid the trump card again, why am I not surprised at all? John Garrett smiled and put down the walkie-talkie. He looked at the peculiar runes around him, and couldn't help touching his cold stomach. Can the power of a vampire help him survive? At this time, Wang Bot and others had fled to the woods behind the altar. Wang Bot stopped, turned his head to look behind, and said, "There is no movement, it seems that S.H.I.E.L.D. does not intend to hunt us down. They can't catch up either." Blade asked Wang Bert, "What are you going to do next?" "Swallow vampires and strengthen your strength. Once Dickon Firth dies, the blood race will be in chaos. It's a good time for me to take action." Wang Bert said frankly, "How about you?" Blade's edge is also very frank, "Go back to the safe house, deal with Vanessa, and study you, maybe there will be a need in the future." James is speechless. No wonder these two can become friends, a virtue. "Then you have to think about it. Well, Blade, we part ways here." Wang Bert laughed and said, "However, we will meet soon, and I have to do something big with you. I like to hunt vampires alone." Blade had a bit of a misunderstanding, and replied to Wang Bert coolly, then he hesitated and asked, "Dickon said that vampires have nuclear bombs, is it true?" "It doesn't matter if it's true or false. With nuclear bombs, vampires die faster. That thing is just used to scare people." Wang Bert waved his hand and said, "The best way is to keep it buried in the ground." The Blade understood, he nodded to Wang Bert and left quickly with Vanessa on his back. James looked at his back and couldn't help asking, "Bert, why didn't you kill him? With your current strength, you should, isn't it difficult?" "I never intended to kill him, and he's not that easy to kill, he's a blade." Wang Bert shook his head and said, "James, is there a place to put me? I need to get acquainted with the power. At least the pink eye will be cured first." James glanced at Wang Bert's eyes and wanted to laugh a little. He said, "I have a safe house, but Bert, you are a blood now, so you don't need to hide, right? With your identity, you are enough to lead the blood clan. You think too much. I'm just a stranger to the blood clan. Even if I have the identity of a blood god, they will not easily recognize me. I don't have the tyrannical spirit to let go." Wang Bert sneered, "There is only one way to make them surrender." James asked impatiently, "What method?" "Take them down and make them kneel and beg me to be their king." Wang Bert said. James couldn't help but ask, "Can it be done?" "Of course I can, I'm the blood god." In the afternoon, Manhattan Island is a bit deserted than before. In the past month or so, dozens of fierce gun battles have occurred in New York one after another, killing and injuring many people. Our Commissioner George Stacy has been scolded again. It's really pitiful. He seems to have only been in office for 2 months, right? In an indoor coffee shop, Wang Bert flipped through the newspaper and said with a smile that in more than a month, he has been able to control his strength and his eyes have returned to normal. James hid most of his body in the darkness and complained, "God of blood, you seem to have caused the 3 shootouts, right?" Wang Bert put down the newspaper, took a sip of coffee, and said lightly, "The shootout I caused all ended quickly, and no innocent people were injured, so I can't blame me." "That's right, you are a complete instant kill for those vampires." James looked at Wang Bert in awe. He had witnessed the power of the blood god with his own eyes. He asked, "Blood god, besides us and the blade, there seems to be a force against vampires. If you guessed correctly, it should be SHIELD taking the opportunity to eliminate vampires. Their methods are much more ruthless than ours. Wang Bert said, however, this is not a bad thing. The harder SHIELD kills, the faster the vampires surrender. James couldn't help but ask, God of Blood, when will the Blood clan surrender? Come on, the current situation of the Blood clan is very dangerous. As long as they get rid of their radicals, the remaining conservatives will surrender. Wang Bert said, this day will not be far away, because the radicals want to kill me very much, they will take the initiative to attack. James said, then they are really courting death. You are invincible, Blood God. For vampires, I am indeed invincible. Wang Bert smiled and said, after paying the bill, wait for me in the parking lot. I'll find you after I've settled this base. Yes, Blood God. James respectfully watched Wang Bert leave, and he felt more and more that it was a wise decision to follow Wang Bert. What, forced? Of course not. The first time he saw Wang Bot, he felt that the other party had the appearance of heaven and man, so he took the initiative to join him. That's right, that's it. Bribery or something, completely non-existent. Wang Bert naturally didn't know what James was thinking. He walked along the entrance into an abandoned subway station. According to James' information, it was a vampire stronghold. They spread some news on the internet to attract people to come here to explore or have a tryst. All their blood sucked. It stands to reason that if there are too many dead people, no one should come again, but in fact, the more people who die, the more people will come. As soon as Wang Bert walked into the subway station, he realized something was wrong. He stopped and said, your counterattack is faster than I thought. The surroundings were very quiet, and no one answered. After a while, more than 20 figures came out from the shadows around them. Then, dozens of heavily armed figures poured in from the surrounding entrances, aiming their assault rifles at Wang Bert. Compared with the calm figures in front, the people in the back are obviously a little nervous. After all, they are facing the Blood God, and it is said that hundreds of vampires have died in his hands. It is worth mentioning that these vampires are very tightly wrapped, and they are obviously guarding against Wang Bert's ultraviolet tactics. Vampires are not stupid, they know their weaknesses. More than 20 pure-blood vampires, the lineup is not small. Wang Bert glanced at the vampires and said with a smile, are you going to give me extra meals? Bert King, the power of the blood is not something that you, a despicable half-blood, can possess. Today, we will absorb all your blood and turn you into ashes. A middle-aged pure-blooded vampire with a quaint box in his hand shouted arrogantly. They opposed Wang Bert. On the one hand, they were dissatisfied with Wang Bert, and on the other hand, they wanted Wang Bert's power. These pure-bloods sit and watch Dickens' actions, and there are factors in this aspect. Inferior? A group of disgusting bad spirits, dare to say that about me. Wang Bert's figure suddenly appeared in front of the pure-blooded vampire, and the palm of his hand turned into a sword and stabbed at his chest. The pure-blooded vampire was shocked and slammed the bottom of the box. The chains automatically wrapped around Wang Bert's body, making him unable to move. What is this? Wang Bert frowned, his body turned into a river of blood and wanted to escape. Who would have thought that even if it turned into a river of blood, he would still be unable to get rid of the blood-colored rune chain? He was locked in midair and could not escape. This is the treasure of our blood clan, Vlad's blood chain. Although our North American blood clan is not as deep as the Europa blood clan, it is not that you, a blood god, can be arrogant. The middle-aged vampire laughed. Then, he took out a knife and cut his wrist, and provided the blood to the blood chain. The same is true for other pure-blood vampires. The blood chain is indeed powerful, but it must be driven by pure blood, and it consumes a lot of money. If not, it will not be used forever. Wang Bert didn't panic. He returned to his human form, ignoring the blood chains that were getting tighter and tighter, and said with a smile, "Good stuff, I want it." "Dream, your blood will soon become ours." The middle-aged vampire said disdainfully. So did other vampires, their eyes were full of greed and hatred. "You are a dirty half-blood, and you are also worthy of becoming a blood god? Today, we will let you know that the blood race will always belong to pure blood." "That's right, disgusting half-breed, go to hell." Hearing these curses, Wang But's eyes gradually turned cold. He was too lazy to talk nonsense anymore. His heart moved, and a cloud of blood suddenly fell on the ceiling. His blood. "No. Don't kill me, I surrender." The middle-aged vampire no longer had the pride he had before, and he begged for mercy immediately. He has lived for hundreds of years, and he doesn't want to die here. What a disgusting higher creature! With a look of contempt, Wang Bert directly controlled the blood to the opponent into a mummified corpse, and then the blood shot at another pure-blooded vampire like lightning. "Stop him!" The pure-bloods panicked and shouted loudly. The mixed bloods immediately shot at the blood. The blood sank violently, dodging most of the bullets, and then threw all the 9 silver-white metal hidden in it on the ground. Before the vampires could see what they were, 9 metal burst open at the same time, and a large number of silver-white flying needles shot out, hitting the calves and thighs of the vampires. The vampires are indeed fully armed, and even wear bulletproof vests, but the bulletproof vests protect the chest and back, not the legs, so they were all shot by the dense silver needles. The power of these silver needles is not great. After all, this is just a temporary product designed by Frank's colleagues according to Wang Bert's idea. If it is an ordinary person, it will be slightly injured. The problem is that these are vampires, and those silver needles are all it's silver-plated. Therefore, the vampires screamed in agony, and their bodies began to dissolve rapidly from the position where they were shot by the silver needles. In just a moment, those mixed-race vampires turned into ashes, and only the clothes and firearms on their bodies fell to the ground. And those pure-blooded vampires were also injured a lot, and their legs were dissolved with wounds one after another, which was extremely miserable. Wang But's blood was split into 3 parts, turning into 3 long arrows and shooting through the bodies of the 3 pure-blooded vampires. The pure-bloods were completely panicked. The pure-blood vampires were in chaos, and the blood chains could no longer trap Wang Bert. He shouted loudly, broke free from the blood chains, and then turned into a river of blood that kept getting bigger and flowed, completely covering the sky of pure-blood vampires. "No, let us go, we surrender." The pure-blooded vampires were frightened. While running away, they screamed for mercy. Unfortunately, Wang Bert ignored it. The blood river evolved into countless blood-colored spears, which roared down and densely packed blood. In just a few seconds, these vampires were all sucked dry. After solving the enemy, the rivers of blood gathered together and turned into Wang Bert again. He looked at the clothes and firearms all over the floor and smiled disdainfully. The current Wang Bo is so powerful, the so-called pure blood is not worth mentioning in front of him. Next, Wang Bert took out a small UV light from his pocket, turned it on, and when he took a photo, all the mummies on the ground were wiped out. After destroying the corpse, Wang Bert walked over and picked up the blood chain on the ground. He recalled the memory of the middle-aged vampire just now, smeared the blood on the blood chain, and the blood chain greedily absorbed his blood, and gradually smaller, like a belt. The disadvantage of this thing is that it consumes a lot of money, but it's nothing to me. I have a river of blood. Wang Bert tied the chain around his waist as a belt, then he left this sentence on the wall with a knife, then he tidied up his clothes and turned to leave the subway station. Those who offend the blood god, die. The day when the blood clan surrenders is not far away. 7 days later, the pure-blooded vampire Mercury took a group of vampires and knelt down in front of Wang Bert. "I beg the blood to save our blood clan. From today onwards, I will be your patriarch." Bert Wang laughed. His first step in the Marvel world is now officially completed. www.mtlnovel.com. Next, he will participate in this doomsday survival game as a blood god. Wongbird narrowed his eyes. Next, it's time to use the power of the Blood Clan to go to England to find that lady. She is an important pawn. I wonder if I can convince her to come and work for me. By the way, I have to verify that someone is back. No. On the road with people coming and going, Dao Feng sighed and felt a little annoyed. After leaving the altar, he never followed through. First, when he returned to his old nest, he found that the bitten whist was missing, and then he talked to his mother Vanessa every day. Quarrel. Vanessa always blamed Blade for killing Dickon, and she also said that she was a nobleman and wanted to drink the blood of living people. Blade really wanted to drag Dickon up from and kill him again. The only thing that can make Blade happy now is to kill vampires. During this time, the vampires were in chaos. He killed them very happily, and now, he is on his way to kill vampires. At this moment, a police car suddenly stopped in front of the Blade, and then a policeman got out of the car and walked towards him. The Blade was a little frowning. He didn't have a good relationship with the police. Well, he was a wanted criminal at all, or premium. The police stopped in front of Dao Feng, handed a phone call in a little fear, and said, "Mr. Dao Feng, the Blood is looking for you. Are you from the Kazakh tribe?" The Blade was stunned for a moment. The Blood and the Ha Blood clan got together. This is not good news. The police flattered and said, "Yes, I have always longed to be a noble blood family. I will come to you when you become a vampire." After Dao Feng finished speaking, he picked up the mobile phone regardless of the police's stiff face. There was only one number in it. Dao Feng dialed, and soon, the phone was connected, and Wongbit's deep voice came from inside. "Dao Feng, I'm sorry, they gave too much." "Blade, I'm sorry, they gave too much." Wongbit's words made Dao Feng's heart sink. He was about to say something when Wongbird laughed. "Just kidding, Dao Feng, come to my manor as a guest, I have a surprise for you." Blade was speechless. He was silent for a while, and asked, "Are you a human now, or a vampire?" Wongbird said, "Man, a person who is regarded as a king by a vampire and may be the richest person in the world at the same time. I am going now." Dao Feng put down his phone and said coolly to the police, "Take me there." "Good." The policeman nodded in favor, and then he drove the police car to the front of a large manor in the suburbs. The policeman glanced enviously at the manor worth hundreds of millions, and said to Dao Feng, "Mr. Dao Feng, I can't go in, I can only send you here." The Blade ignored the clan, opened the door and stepped out of the police car. An acquaintance with an umbrella was waiting for him at the door, but it was James. "Blade, the blood god is waiting for you. Speaking of which, can't you come back at night? It's so uncomfortable during the day." James said with a smile. It could be seen that he was quite complacent during this time, and the smile on his face never stopped. Blade's eyes looked James up and down through the sunglasses, and said, "The clothes are good." "More than good? This is a top-level suit that I spent more than $100,000 to find someone to make, and it is also equipped with high-tech UV protection." James boasted that he never expected to have this kind of clothes before. Blade's edge was a little speechless. More than $100,000. Xiaola, after the death of the speaker and the 12 pure-blood elders, most of their property belonged to the blood god, except for some that were taken away by Shield. James motioned for the Blade to get on the patrol car, and then drove in, while saying, "The first day the Blood stayed here, he bought a dozen luxury cars, and also called a group of car models to have a party." "Hey, Blade, I heard that the Blood can freely control any part of the body, any part." Blade gave James a speechless look. "Is it really good to arrange the big boss like this? But then again, this function is really ugly, enviable." Blade sighed secretly. No wonder he said that he gave too much. The wealth of pure blood in North America probably fell into his hands. Now he is afraid that he has more money than Tony Stark. The patrol car drove for more than 10 minutes before arriving at the gate of the villa. To Dao Feng's surprise, Wang Bert was actually waiting there. He stepped forward and hugged Dao Feng before smiling. Dao Feng, long time no see. It's not too long, I haven't figured out a way to kill you. Dao Feng said. The housekeeper and maid next to him were very shocked when they heard the words, and they dared to speak to the blood god like this. Isn't he afraid of death? Think slowly, don't worry, let's go in and talk. Wang Bert laughed. He said, James, we still have a wave of guests. You have to work hard and meet them outside. Got it, blood god. James respectfully agreed, but he was a little surprised who came. He was the confidant of the blood god, and the people who could be greeted by him were not ordinary people. Wang Bert walked into the villa with the blade and said, I'll give you a surprise first, let's talk about the rest. Isn't there a group of vampires ambushing around? Dao Feng asked, and Wang Bo laughed dumbly. He said, to deal with you, I am enough alone, no need to ambush. Don't talk about this, just watch the surprise first, you will be very happy. With that said, Wang Bert pushed open the front door, and there was an old man drinking red wine, and a lot of wine spilled out and fell on his clothes. When normal people see this scene, they will definitely guess that this is cheap red wine. In fact, the red wine the old man drinks is worth tens of thousands of dollars. Whist! Seeing the old man, Dao Feng exclaimed. Whist turned his head and laughed at Dao Feng. Dao Feng, you are finally here, I knew they would definitely come for you. Blade's expression is a bit complicated. Since Whist is alive, he should have become a vampire, right? Don't worry, he's still human. Wang Bert patted the shoulder of the Blade, and said, when you went to deal with Dickon, he was taken away by a group of vampires, and the group of vampires froze him and tortured him day and night. Later, I rescued him and gave him medicine. Back to human. This is the plot of the second part of Blade Runner. Whist has indeed changed back into a human being, so it is assumed here that after a person is bitten, as long as he has not turned into a vampire, he can be rescued with medicine. That's right, I'm a human now. After this guy rescued me and came back, he served delicious food and drink every day, and even invited a few models to accompany me, and he lived like a fairy. Whist laughed, but the next moment, he smashed the precious red wine on the ground and smashed it, and then shouted, he thought that he could bribe me, he was wrong. Blade, don't mind me, all these vampires are killed. Blade was a little speechless, but he was more happy, and he was still the familiar Whist, the same as always. Whist, this is a bit of a waste. Wang Bert was a little dissatisfied. He said, by the way, one of those models is pregnant. What? Whist, who was still arrogant just now, was stunned, and Wang Bert laughed. He said, just kidding, come here, clean up this place, there will be guests in a while. Immediately, maids came to clean up. These maids were all carefully selected human beings who specially served vampires. Vampires can do whatever they want, including blood-sucking. Blade couldn't help but ask, Bert, what exactly do you want to do? You will know in a while, Blade, we are friends, I will not harm you, as long as you want, you can leave with Whist at any time, and I will never stop it. Wang Bert said solemnly, however, I hope you can stay for a while. Today, we will decide the fate of the North American blood race. Dao Feng glanced at Wang Bert, nodded and said, okay. You won't be disappointed. Sit down. Wang Bert smiled, and Witter sneered, just see what you want to do, by the way, give me a few more bottles of mouthwash for the red wine just now. No problem, but don't smash it anymore, I don't like waste. Wang Bert clapped his hands and asked someone to bring over a few bottles of wine. Having money and being wasted are two different things. Having money doesn't mean waste. Whist, drink less. Dao Feng sat down. He looked at the precious furniture around him. At first glance, it was not an ordinary cashmere rug, and there were genuine pieces hanging there. He sighed, pure blood is too extravagant. It's really too extravagant. Wang Bert nodded in agreement, as long as a phone call, a Michelin chef will come to cook for us immediately, and all the materials will be shipped by air. By the way, the housekeeper gave me a list before, which records many stars, as well as people who have beauty of noble blood and so on. As long as I need them, they will come over immediately and let me taste their blood. It's disgusting. Whist cursed, and Blade shook his head. Half-blooded vampires can't even drink blood bags, but pure-bloods can pick and drink blood at will. It's no wonder that half-bloods are incited by Dickon. Also, the behavior of the blood-raising slave is really disgusting. It's really disgusting, so I don't want any of them. I'd rather communicate with them in other ways. Wang Bert laughed. He said, speaking of which, a lot of money is also troublesome. My team has not been able to calculate how much money I have. And this time it is estimated that I have to pay a lot of taxes. The tax bureau is not good. Provoked. Are you showing off? Blade complained. At this time, the butler came in and reported, Blood God, Senator Stern and Director of SHIELD have arrived. Okay, I'll come out now. Wang Bert nodded and said to Dao Feng, you will have a meeting together in a while, Whist, you should avoid it first, your mouth is too stinky and it is easy to offend people. Whist gave Wang Bert a middle finger, got up and limped away with a bottle of wine. As he passed by Dao Feng, he whispered, Knife, don't believe a word of what a vampire says. Blade nodded coolly. Although Bert Wang heard it, he didn't care. He got up and went to the door to greet the senator and Nick Fury. The one-eyed dragon Nick Fury had a dark face the whole time. He felt that he was too unlucky. He spent more than 10 years carefully arranging a blood plan. Once successful, the blood clan would no longer be a threat. The result was 1,000 calculations, but a guy jumped out in the middle to cut off the blood god, and even Dickon was killed by that guy, which not only caused his plan to go bankrupt, but also made all his arrangements and backups go to waste. Turned into a joke. What's even more depressing is that Director Fury didn't find out about this until some time ago, so he couldn't change his plan immediately, and his original plan helped the guy. It was precisely because of the pressure of SHIELD. Will surrender to him so quickly. If they don't surrender, the Blood Clan will be killed by the Blood God, Blade's Edge, and SHIELD. After the Blood Clan surrendered, the Blood stabilized the chaos of the Blood Clan at the fastest speed, and then led the Blood Clan to raid the stronghold of SHIELD, and swept away the 8th-level agent John Garrett and a large group of elite agents. That's why Nick Fury accepted the invitation today and came in person. Negotiate. Of course, Nick Fury will not be in danger, and Senator Stern has also been invited over. Unless vampires want to go to war with humans, they will not dare to do anything in this formal occasion. In addition to this incident, Nick Fury has another trouble, that is, Captain America's girlfriend, Peggy Carter, the founder of S.H.I.E.L.D., went missing a few days ago. He used a lot of manpower to find it, but there was no clue at all. Compared with Director Fury, Senator Stern is in a good mood. Vampires are very generous. Although he is not short of money, who would think that money is too little? Director Fury, Senator Stern, welcome. Wang Bert walked out of the villa, stretched out his hand to the two of them and said, I'm the new patriarch of the Blood Clan, you can call me Bert. Senator Stern held Wang Bert's hand and sighed, Patriarch Bert is really young and promising. The Blood Clan has always only had the speaker, where did the patriarch come from? Director Fury stared at Wang Bert and said in a cold voice that he has recently investigated a lot of Wang Bert's information. To be honest, he still can't understand why such an ordinary boy can defeat Dickon and become a blood god. 22 years before this kid became a vampire, there was nothing special about it. After he became a vampire, he went all the way. Now he has become the head of the Blood Clan, and he even has to negotiate with him. I didn't have it before, but now I have it. Speaking of which, it is thanks to you, Director Fury. Otherwise, if the 12 elders and the speaker are still there, no one will be able to rule the Blood family. Wang Bird smiled and said, by the way, do you want me to write a thank you letter to S.H.I.E.L.D? Director Fury's face became even darker. Everything he did became a stepping stone for this kid. It can be said that without him, this kid would never have been so successful. Stern said in a roundabout way, okay, let's go in and talk in detail. Patriarch Bird won't let us drink the wind here, right? Of course not, you two please. Wang Bird invited the two of them into the conference room. They were stunned when they saw Dao Feng. Wang Bird introduced, this is the famous vampire hunter Blade, the Blood Clan's #1 enemy, Dao Feng, this is Director Fury, Dickon was his undercover agent, Senator Stern. Dao Feng said with a bad expression, Director Fury? I really appreciate your care. Director Fury snorted coldly, I don't know Dickon, but why are you a vampire hunter in the vampire's lair? The Blade was too lazy to take care of Fury, and Wang Bird asked the two to sit down, let the maid beside him pour the red wine that had woken up, and introduced, this is the red wine I got from an elder's house, and I heard that Napoleon owned it. I don't quite understand this, the two of you are free. Stern said with a smile, it's from the Napoleonic period, you really have to taste it. Director Fury didn't mean to taste it. He said, Patriarch Bert, I want you to explain why we attacked our SHIELD station and captured our people. Wang Bert sneered, everyone says that Director Fury is even more black-hearted. Sure enough, it was your people who attacked our Blood Clan, but you actually hit back. Director Fury said with a blank expression, what you said is suspected of racial discrimination. No, I'm just despising you. Wang Bert waved his hand, motioned the maid to leave, and then said, okay, let's not talk more nonsense, Director Fury, Senator Stern, I just want to ask, is the agreement between the vampires and humans still valid? Before Commissioner Fury could answer, Senator Stern put down his glass and said with great certainty, it works, I'm here to mediate between the two of you and bring everything back to normal. Recently, the law and order in New York has been a lot worse. Washington doesn't want to go on like this. Director Fury's face darkened again, what is a pig teammate? This is called pig teammates. The Blood Clan is not strong, but it has never been eliminated. Apart from the nuclear bombs that do not exist, and the powerful capital, the most important thing is that there is a group of HA blood in the government to them. Those who hold power want to live forever, and live decently, so the blood race can't fall. Since the agreement is still valid, why did SHIELD send Dickon to trouble our Blood Clan? Also, why did SHIELD attack the gathering place of our Blood Clan, kill our people, and rob our wealth? Wang Bird asked Director Fury, Director Fury, you must give me an explanation today. I said, I don't know Dickon. Director Fury said, as for attacking the gathering place of your Blood Clan, it is because your Blood Clan violated the agreement to arrest living people to blood, and we have the right to do so. That was instigated by your undercover Dickon. SHIELD must release our people immediately and compensate us for our losses. I'll say it for the last time, I don't know any Dickon, it's your Blood family who should compensate, and let our agents out immediately. Naturally, the two sides quarreled. Senator Stern hurried to smooth things out, while Blade drank silently beside him. It was so boring. Both sides were acting. In fact, this is not called drama, this is called going through the motions. Although it is boring, it is necessary. The quarrel was almost over. Wang Bird waved his hand and said, Director Fury, I will give the senator face, and I will return all the agents to you, but correspondingly, you must also take away the blood and the wealth you have stolen. Give it back to us, and then we will formally cease the war and continue to maintain the previous contract. Can. Director Fury agreed with a cold face. With the current situation, it can only be like this. No matter how strong SHIELD is, it cannot go against the decision of Washington. SHIELD this time, it can be said that the bamboo basket is an empty game. www.mtlnovel.com. The Blood Clan did not get any good, only the Blood God, who won a big victory. Of course, Director Fury didn't plan to cheap vampires either. How much he had to pay back depended on his mood. It just happened that he was short of money to build a base recently. Director Fury likes to build bases all over the world the most, even if it is corrupt. Bert Wong nodded with satisfaction. He said, "Very good, Senator, Commissioner Fury, I have a suggestion." "What advice?" "This time, SHIELD is primarily responsible for the conflict between the SHIELD and the vampires, but our vampires are also responsible. Many vampires do not abide by the agreement and wantonly the blood of living people." Bert Wong glanced at Director Fury and said, "Deacon Firth, who is supported by SHIELD, is the most typical representative." Director Fury said, "I don't want to explain, Bert Wong, what are you talking about?" Wong Bert smiled and said, "What I want to do is very simple, to prevent this kind of thing from happening again. Looks like I'm going to write you a thank you letter." Director Fury exaggeratedly said that he didn't believe what Bert Wong said at all. In fact, Senator Stern didn't believe it either. Bert Wong ignored Chief Fury, and continued, "For this reason, I decided to set up a vampire police station, which is specially responsible for investigating and dealing with those criminal vampires. The rules are similar to human laws." Wong Bert glanced at Director Fury and said, "SHIELD can send someone to join the Sanguine police station, and the ratio of the two sides is about 1 to 9. Are you serious?" Director Fury was a little shocked. It was nothing to set up a Blood Clan police station, but willing to let SHIELD. Dao Feng also looked at Wang Bo in shock. Could this be what the other party gave him? "Really, but if you want to join, you must agree to a few requests from me." Wang Bert said, "First, protect the interests of vampires. If a law-abiding vampire is killed, you must arrest the murderer, and you must help destroy the organizations that study vampires. Second, the price of blood bags must be lowered. The original ones were too expensive, and many mixed-race vampires had to take the road of crime because they had no money to buy blood bags. This can't be helped, there's only so much blood. In order to supply your vampires, our blood bank is a little short of blood." Senator Stern said that selling blood to vampires is a big revenue for the government, and it is also a very useful dark revenue. It does not need the review of the two houses, and he does not want to lower it at all. Wang Bert smiled and said, "There is always a way, it must be lowered." Director Fury pondered for a while, and said to Wang Bert, "I can consider the conditions you mentioned, but the ratio of the two sides is too low. I think it is more appropriate to split between 5 and 5. 5 to 5 is absolutely impossible." Seeing Chief Furyui's lion's big opening, Wang Bert shook his head and said, "Director Furyui, I just set the tone. If you have any ideas, you can talk to my CEO in detail." Director Fury asked, "President?" "Yes, I plan to set up a blood group, and the president hired by a high salary will handle various matters. She is now learning how much assets I have, and you can see her in a while." Wang Bert smiled and said, "Director Fury, my president will definitely surprise you." Director Fury smiled without saying a word. "Surprised me? Who do you think I am? I am the director of SHIELD, what have you not seen?" Wang Bert went on to say, "In addition, the chief of the Blood Clan police station, I would like to invite the vampire hunter Blade." Dao Feng was a little surprised. Wang Bert nodded and said, "Yes, it's up to you, it's no different from your original job, it's all about killing vampires. The difference is that before, everything is killed, now only those who violate the law are killed. Not all vampires are bad, I'm sure you agree." Blade said coolly, I didn't kill all of them, at least I didn't kill you. That's true. Bert Wong laughed, and Director Fury couldn't help but glance at Dao Feng. You wanted to kill him at the time, so why is there so much trouble now? Dao Feng said to Wang Bert, after the establishment of the Blood Clan police station, many vampires will die. Countless vampires, the blood of living people. Let's forget what happened in the past, don't worry about the future killings, no matter how many are killed. Wang Bert said cruelly, he doesn't mind swallowing a little more blood at all. Thinking of something, Wang Bert took out a badge from his arms and threw it to Dao Feng, saying, Bao Feng, this is for you. Which family's badge is this? A blood-colored dragon? I've never seen it before. The blade glanced at the blood dragon on the badge, and asked inexplicably. Wang Bert smiled, this is my badge, the first piece in your hand, it has my power on it, seeing the badge is like seeing me, you can kill any vampire except me and report back. Of course, a rigorous investigation is required afterwards. When everyone heard this, they looked at Wang Bot in shock. How could he trust the blade so much and give him such great power? Shang Fang's sword in the east? Cut first and then play. Director Fury squinted slightly, the blood god's behavior is completely different from those rotten vampire elders, young and vigorous and resolute. Blade felt that the badge was a little heavy, and he asked, do you trust me so much? Because you and I are the same. Wang Bert smiled and said, in addition to the vampire police station, I will also pay people to study the artificial blood that vampires can drink. Once successful, vampires can integrate into human society, and there is no need to hide like now. This sentence made the three of them stunned for a moment. Then, they all shook their heads secretly. This idea is completely unrealistic. It is impossible for vampires to integrate into human society. The life forms of the two are too different. There are a lot of problems with ethnic integration of different skin colors, not to mention interracial integration. These new patriarchs are a bit naive, but the law-abiding vampires meet the requirements of human beings very well. Senator Stern and Commissioner Fury exchanged glances and nodded secretly. Dream still has to be, what if it comes true? Wang Bert saw what the three were thinking and said with a smile, Knife, what do you think? I think being the director can do more than you can do alone. Let me consider it. Blade said, from the action of holding the badge, he can know that he is very moved. Think slowly, I'm not in a hurry. Wang Bert smiled, and Chief Fury said, the general framework has been negotiated. I will send someone to discuss with you about the exchange of prisoners in the Blood Clan police station. Patriarch Bert, I hope what you just said is the truth. At least it's more real than you. Wang Bert said. Stern nodded with satisfaction. Under his mediation, everything went smoothly and harmoniously. At this moment, the side door of the conference room opened, and a young and beautiful British beauty with a mature and graceful temperament walked in, followed by the pure-blooded vampire Mercury, holding a pile of documents with an unhappy face. Seeing this British beauty, Director Fury was stunned for a moment, then stood up abruptly, and shouted in disbelief, Ms. Carter. Although the other party has become younger, Director Fury will not admit his mistake. The reason is very simple. He grew up watching Ms. Carter's films and the US team's documentaries. Stern was also shocked, but he was not surprised why Ms. Carter was here, but that the other party had become so young. Being a vampire also has this benefit, why haven't I heard of it before? If these two things get out, it will definitely cause a sensation, whether it's the matter of Ms. Carter becoming a vampire, or the matter of Ms. Carter becoming young, it will cause a sensation. Peggy Carter greeted Chief Fury with a smile, Director Fury, we meet again. Director Fury slapped the table hard, glared at Wang Bert with one eye and said, Vampires, you are so bold, you actually dare to turn Ms. Carter into a vampire, do you want to die? Wang Bert sneered, are you threatening me? Carter waved his hand and said, I was not forced, he talked with me for 3 hours and successfully persuaded me that I would become the president of the Blood God group and lead the blood race and human beings to merge, and the reward he paid was eternal life and youth. Director Fury didn't believe that other women would agree to this condition, but a strange woman like Ms. Carter certainly wouldn't. He took a deep breath and said, "I want to talk to you alone." "At will." Bert Wong waved his hand, Carter nodded, and took Director Fury to the side to talk alone. As soon as the two left, Stern couldn't wait to ask, "Patriarch Bert, can your blood family restore youth? This is a very expensive special treasure. It's not that easy to invite Ms. Carter." Bert Wong said with a smile, "In fact, there are no treasures. His blood has the function of restoring youth." "That's right, Ms. Carter is his descendant." "Is the price too high?" "I believe most women are willing to pay this price." Senator Stern stood up and said, "Patriarch Bert, I have to go back and report to the Vice President about the armistice and the Blood Clan Police Department. I'll send it to you." Bert Wong stood up to send Stern away. "On the way," he said, "Senator, what kind of yacht do you like? I'm planning to hold a swimsuit beauty party recently, and I need a yacht. By the way, if you are interested, you can join us. This is not bad. I'll go back and look through the magazines to see which one suits me." Stern laughed. He knew that the other party wanted to send him a yacht. "Then we've agreed." Bert Wong smiled and shook hands with Stern, then watched him leave. "If I remember correctly, this old guy seems to be a Hydra, right? What if I say long live Hydra in his ear?" Wong Bert shook his head and turned back to the living room, only to see Mercury and Dao Feng staring at each other, looking like they were drawn with swords. Wong Bert smiled and said, "You will be colleagues in the future, so you must live in harmony." Quicksilver turned his head and said dissatisfiedly, "Why did you ask Ms. Carter to be the president? Don't you know she is the founder of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Dao Feng couldn't help but glance at Wong Bert, and actually asked the founder of SHIELD to be the president. Was this head kicked by a donkey? "I know, but she is also a vampire now, and she will safeguard the interests of the vampire." Wong Bert poured himself a glass of red wine and said, "Besides, I need someone who does not belong to your pure blood to help me control the Blood Clan. Ms. Carter's ability is just right." Mercury said, "We have already handed over all our assets to you, why don't you trust us yet? Trust needs to be built slowly. Talking about trust now will only hurt feelings." Wong Bert sneered. If Carter was not brought in, he would become a puppet of the Blood Clan in minutes. He continued, "Also, the Blood Clan needs to change, otherwise the game will be finished sooner or later. Let outsiders be the president, and we can make better changes. The blood race does need change, but it's not your kind of change." Mercury shouted, "After the establishment of the Blood Clan police station, a lot of vampires will die, and a large number of vampires will escape. At that time, the strength of our Blood Clan will be greatly weakened." Wong Bert said, "It won't be weakened, the vampires who break the law will be swallowed by me, that is to say, their strength will be transformed into my strength, so that the strength of the Blood Clan will not only not decrease, but will also increase. Enough to ensure the Blood Clan's strength, safety and profit." Quicksilver and Blade were stunned. "You want to swallow those vampires who break the law?" Wong Bert nodded, "Can't you? We can give a nice name to return to the embrace of the Blood God. What do you think?" "No way." Blade asked suspiciously, "Is this the purpose of your establishment of the police station? Let us help you collect blood." Wong Bert's face sank, and he said coldly, "You know too much." The surroundings suddenly became dignified. Dao Feng pushed off his sunglasses, and with a look of disdain on his face, Wang Bo laughed and said, "It's just a matter of public and private purposes." Mercury said again, "Even if a police station is established, humans will not treat us as their own." "Of course not, the bald chief is probably already studying me." Wang Bert said, but this will reduce their hostility to us. We have huge capital, a large number of Kazakhs, and nuclear bombs. If it is not necessary, humans will not easily go to war with us. The reason why the blood race has this crisis is largely because you pure-blooded vampires are shouting to enslave humans all day long, so there is the plan of Shield and the traitor Dickon. Speaking of Dickon, Mercury's face turned completely black. This was definitely the biggest stain in her life. She actually worked for a human undercover agent, and she admired him immensely. In short, the Blood Clan police station must be established, and those vampires who break the law, as well as radical vampires, and vampires who think they are superior to others, must be dealt with all. Wang Bird said without the slightest doubt, "This is not for human beings, this is my requirement for the vampires. I never like vampires that the blood of living people." Blade nodded approvingly. Bert didn't lie, he was still a human being. Mercury snorted coldly, "What's wrong with our blood family, being superior to others? Aren't you awake yet? If humans spare no expense, the Blood Clan will be wiped out within a month." Wang Bird said disdainfully, "The weakness of the vampires is too obvious. It is no longer the Middle Ages. Today's human beings mostly use methods to kill vampires." This time, Mercury was silent. It turned out that they really had high self-esteem, but this time, the confrontation with S.H.I.E.L.D. made them understand that human beings have become stronger than them's battle with S.H.I.E.L.D., they did not have a single battle to win, to be slaughtered completely one-sided. If it wasn't for the Blood God taking the S.H.I.E.L.D. stronghold, they wouldn't even have the qualifications to negotiate. The compromise strategy of the Speaker and the 12 Elders was not correct, but the mixed race and radicals who were used by Dickon. Wang Bird said, "Mercury, times have changed." Mercury gritted his teeth and said, "I will support you in establishing the Blood Clan police station, but I hope you can remember that you are the blood of the Blood Clan." "Of course I am the blood of the Blood Clan." Wang Bird laughed. At this time, Director Fury walked in through the side door with a dark face. www.mtlnovel.com. He said to Wang Bird, "I will send someone to discuss the previous matter. Bert Wang, remember, I'll be watching you all the time." After speaking, Director Fury left without looking back. Obviously, the conversation with Ms. Carter just now was not smooth. Of course, it may also be his performance. "Should I act scared?" Wang Bird shrugged, and he asked Carter, who came out, "President Carter, how much assets do I have now? Have you finished counting them?" "Only a rough estimate. You are now richer than the Stark family. If you want to make all the statistics, I need a professional team to cooperate with me." Carter smiled and said, "Speaking of which, I really didn't expect your blood family to be so rich, and have invested in so many fields, and even control Universal Pictures, one of the 6 major Hollywood studios. Without our bloodline injection, Universal Pictures would have closed down long ago." Mercury said disdainfully, "The Blood Clan has investments in many fields, and even has its own financial company on Wall Street, a veritable vampire company. I didn't expect this either. It seems that I can make movies by myself in the future." Wang Bird touched his chin, turned his head to Dao Feng and said, "Blade, let's film a series of Blade fighters to promote the Blood Clan? You will be the starring role." Carter and Mercury are both speechless. Can a movie with Blade as the protagonist really promote the blood race? He is a vampire hunter. Blade said coolly, "I'm not interested, I won't act." Wang Bird laughed, "You don't need to act, the sunglasses are your body, and it's enough to have them." The Blade directly gave Wang Bird a middle finger. Wang Bird didn't care, he said, "While everyone is together, let me talk about the next layout, mainly in terms of framework, the specific implementation, I want you to come." "Okay, I just wanted to hear your strategy, and it's not easy to integrate the blood race into human beings." Hearing Wang Bird's words, Carter nodded and sat down beside him. Mercury glanced at Dao Feng, indicating that he should leave, but Dao Feng was indifferent. The first is the plan of the Blood Clan Police Department. This must be implemented, and a good team must be recruited to join it. Wang Bird said, in addition, in order to ensure that the Blood Clan can abide by the law, the police station must register the information of all the blood clans. It's not realistic. Mercury immediately objected, the blood race has always advocated freedom, no one is willing to register, and after registration, the information will be mastered by S.H.I.E.L.D. When he said this, Mercury glanced at Carter, and Carter smiled lightly, pretending he didn't see it. I know that there will be many people who don't want to register, so we will implement the 10 billion subsidy plan. Wang Bird said, all registered blood clans can get a 10% discount or even a 20% discount when buying blood bags. 10 billion subsidy plan. Everyone was stunned. Carter thought about it and said, if you do this, you can indeed increase the registration rate, but the cost is not small, and it may really need to subsidize tens of billions of funds. It doesn't matter, anyway, I can't spend too much money. And the price of blood bags is a bit inflated. Pure bloods have always made money in this area, and now it's just not making any money. Bert Wong said indifferently. Mercury gritted his teeth secretly, of course you don't care, that's all our pure blood money. Blade agreed, this method is good, not only can vampires be registered, but also, if there is enough blood, vampire crimes will definitely be reduced a lot. That's right, that's what I meant. Wang Bird nodded and continued, in addition, we will build several factories to recruit those vampires who can't find jobs to work, and the location will be in Hell's Kitchen, near Midtown, easy to manage, and the headquarters of the Blood God Group. Put it there too. Mercury said, the problem is, Hell's Kitchen is messy, with gun battles every day. Wang Bird sneered, we vampires are afraid of chaos? If they dare to come to trouble us, we will just make a contribution to the security. Hell's Kitchen is good, the land price there is not high, and it is also in Manhattan Island. Carter glanced at Bert Wong. The other party chose this place, presumably for the purpose of making human beings thwart rats. No one would throw missiles at Manhattan Island. Wong Bird ignored Carter's gaze. He thought of something and said, by the way, remember to buy insurance, alien invasion insurance and monster attack insurance. The three of them looked at Wong Bird in astonishment. What's the use of buying this kind of insurance? Could there be an alien invasion? Just buy it. Wong Bird shrugged, didn't say much, and directly changed the subject. Ms. Carter, next, the group must build a blood research department as quickly as possible to develop artificial blood. This is the top priority. Carter nodded first, then asked, no problem, I will set up a blood research department as quickly as possible, but then again, why do vampires have to drink human blood, but animals? How do I know? I've only been a vampire for more than 2 months. Wong Bird spread his hands, turned to look at Mercury. Mercury shook his head and said, I don't know, anyway, animal blood is useless to us, we can only drink human blood to satisfy our hunger. Let's study together then, the artificial blood must be completed, otherwise it is impossible for the blood race to integrate into humans. Wong Bird said, the general framework is these. Once we have integrated the resources of the Blood Clan, we will start filling them step by step. Well, we need to integrate the resources first. The speaker and the 12 elders all died, leaving too many resources, too scattered, it will take a lot of time to integrate them all. Carter nodded, seeing that what Wong Bird said was almost the same, she gestured with her eyes. Wong Bird said to Quicksilver, Quicksilver, you go and tell the other blood clans that we have stopped the war with SHIELD. In addition, let's take our plan a little bit. Leak some, needless to say too detailed. Mercury asked, if it leaks ahead of time, are you afraid that someone will escape? Wong Bird said, if someone wants to escape, let him escape. It doesn't matter. If someone leaves, they will naturally come. I believe that there will be many vampires who are willing to abide by the law. However, if anyone wants to resist, they must all be eliminated. Good. Mercury nodded, got up and left. Her identity was Wang But's assistant and the captain of the guard, and she was very important. After all, she represented the interests of pure blood. Wang Bird turned his head to look at Dao Feng and said, Bao Feng, you also go to discuss with Wist. As for whether to leave or stay, you can decide for yourself. I look forward to your joining us. I will think about it. Dao Feng nodded, got up and left. Seeing that he had taken away the badge, Wang Bo couldn't help but smile. It seems that the director has fallen. After everyone left, Carter couldn't wait to ask, you once said that you would give me evidence. Where's the evidence? Which one are you talking about? The one where Captain America reappeared and kissed your niece after your funeral. Wang Bot knew that he had told Carter about this incident in a joking way, in order to test whether the captain had returned. From the current point of view, the future should have changed. This is a good thing. The Traversers do not change the future, so what do they do? I said, I don't like people making fun of Steve, and he's not the kind of person you said. Carter was a little unhappy. She thought of something and sighed, if he really can come back, even if he does something to Sharon, I won't care. You are so enlightened. Wang Bird laughed secretly. When the captain came back, there was a lot of excitement. He got up and took out a document from the cabinet and put it on the table, saying, this is the evidence you want. Carter couldn't wait to open it. Inside was a personal file, the personal file of Daniel Whitehall. Seeing the photo of this person, Carter couldn't help but be taken aback. She asked, who is this person, and why do I feel so familiar? Wang Bird asked, you don't recognize the name, what about Werner Reinhardt? Werner Reinhardt? It's impossible, he's dead, and even if he wasn't dead, he couldn't be so young. Carter said in shock that Werner Reinhardt was a Hydra scientist. Before she left SHIELD, she had been imprisoned in prison. Later, someone informed her that the other party had died. This person is Werner Reinhardt. As for why he is still alive and so young, you can investigate it yourself. He is the chairman of a company, so it is not difficult to find out. Wang Bird said, I'm still saying that, SHIELD is no longer credible. Speaking of which, you promised to help me so easily, I'm afraid you have already noticed it. Carter was silent. She did notice that the deaths of Howard Stark and his wife were full of doubts. Just as she wanted to investigate, she was retired. But Carter never thought that all of this would be because of Hydra, until Wang Bird came to the door and used this as a condition to make her the president of the Blood God group. Carter doesn't care about life or death, but she can't accept the fact that Hydra isn't dead and is still lurking inside SHIELD. Her greatest achievement in life is defeating Hydra, and now you tell me that Hydra isn't death, can this be endured? Carter put away the document and said, I will investigate, but I want to know, how did you know all this? Fury has investigated you, you are becoming a vampire and you are just an ordinary person. I am the blood god. When I devour blood, I can get a certain memory from the other party. Wang Bird said, some of the elders of the Blood clan once cooperated with Whitehall. In fact, some organizations have long known about the existence of Hydra, and only SHIELD has been kept in the dark from beginning to end. Carter's eyes narrowed slightly. If so, then the problem is serious, indicating that Hydra already occupies a high position in SHIELD. Carter said, I hope you don't lie to me, or even if you are a blood god, I will make you pay the price. Wang Bird smiled and said, don't worry, I never lie, even if I lie, I won't let anyone know. Carter complained, can you rest assured? Wang Bird smiled, he remembered something, and warned, be careful when you investigate, don't let Hydra find out. I know, I won't startle snakes. Carter left with the documents in worry. Bert Wong looked at her back with a twinkle in his eyes. Before the Hydra was solved, Carter could still be used. Amphibian. In addition, Wong Bert made Carter the president, not everything. Carter is just to seize power with pure blood and influence the US team. After thinking about it, Bert Wong asked the maid to notify James to come in. While you have the money and power of the Blood Clan, you are also bound by the Blood Clan. However, if you have so much money, you can bind it. Be a man, the most important thing is to be wonderful. If you really can't bear it in the future, it's a big deal to abandon it. The blood race runs away on its own, and I won't die anyway. Bert Wong held the red wine and smiled slightly. If it wasn't for the excitement, why would he need to be rooted in Manhattan? The first alien invasion was here. James came soon, and he asked respectfully, God of Blood, what are your instructions to me? Wong Bert said, I need you to help me with one thing, this must be kept secret and not let anyone know, including Blade, Carter, Quicksilver. No problem, my mouth is the tightest. James said happily that he was indeed a confidant, and such confidential matters were not handed over to others, but only to him. That's good. Wong Bert nodded, raised his hand, and blood gushed out into the appearance of a man in purple. Find this man for me. Find someone. James was a little disappointed that it was such a small matter. Of course, he didn't dare to shirk and asked, Blood God, where is his position? Is there any other information? Wong Bert said, his name is Kilgrave, he should be in the city, you look for it first, if you can't find it, stare at Jessica Jones, he has a lot of entanglements with this woman. James complained, Kilgrave, killing graves, the meaning of the name? Who would have such a name? Of course it's a freak. Wong Bert copied the blood shadows of Kilgrave and Jessica Jones on the A4 paper on the side, and then he said solemnly, James, listen to me clearly what I say next, don't miss a word. With a straight face, James replied, Blood God, please speak. After you find that person, don't do anything, let alone contact him, let me know as soon as possible. Wong Bert instructed, remember this, let me know as soon as possible. If you let me know that you have done anything unnecessary, your blood will no longer belong to you. Do you understand? Wong Bert said it very seriously, his eyes even turned blood red, making James feel that he would die at any time. He hurriedly said, I see, Blood God, I will inform you as soon as possible. Very well, I'll write you a check for $3 million in a while, as the funds for your search for Kilgrave. Wong Bert's eyes gradually returned to normal. He said, in addition, you can use the resources of the Blood Clan, and you can also select people from the Blood Clan, but you must do a good job of prevention, and don't let anyone leak this. James nodded, understood, I will try my best to choose mixed blood that can be controlled to help. If they dare to leak their secrets, their relatives will die. You can do it yourself, I just want the result. Wong Bert waved his hand and said, next, I will build an intelligence center. Once this is done, you will be in charge of the center. Thank you, Blood God. James was overjoyed. He said, I'm the best at obtaining information. When I passed by the Blade's room just now, I heard him quarrel with that old man. You call it gossip, not getting information. Wong Bert complained, he said, I asked you to be the director of the intelligence center because I trust you, but you have a lot to learn, just like me, I also have a lot to learn. This is the truth. Isn't Wong Bert asking Carter for help because he has no experience in managing a group? James immediately expressed his loyalty, I will never betray your trust, Blood God. I can trust you. Go ahead and help me find that person. In addition, help me find 2 virus experts. Those who are going to die, remember not to leave any traces behind. Bert Wong patted James on the shoulder, and a drop of blood penetrated into his skin from his clothes, and then stayed in his blood. Understood, leave it to me. James took the check from Bert Wong and left excitedly. Wong Bert closed his eyes and waited for a while, then shook his head secretly. The strength is still a little short. If you exceed a certain distance, you will not be able to sense blood. Fortunately, the police station that will be established next will bring me a lot of blood. Blade's Edge is right, a large part of the reason for Wong Bot to set up the police station is to obtain blood. It's too troublesome to kill one by one, and the Blood Clan will resist. Now someone does it for me, so I can sit back and enjoy the success. How wonderful! James' information is correct. www.mtlnovel.com. Blade and Wits are indeed quarreling. Wits cursed, "Are you crazy? Believe what a vampire says? That kid is just fooling you. How can a vampire not sucking human blood? This is 10,000 times more fake than if I don't like drinking. I believe Bert, if you give back 10,000, what if he has other goals? It's all about killing vampires anyway." Blade said stubbornly, "Whites, the situation of the Blood Clan has changed. I need to know more information, the information of the Blood Clan, the information of Bert. If Bert hadn't lied, then I would be a good director. Although his idea is a little unrealistic, it is very beneficial to us humans. If Bert is lying, then I can approach him as the director, and then kill him. I will never stay in a vampire's place, it's disgusting." Witter's tone was a little loose, but he had too much hatred with vampires and would never do anything for vampires. "I didn't intend to let you stay. I need you to provide me with backup and investigate some things that I can't investigate well." Blade smiled, and then he said awkwardly, "Besides, you have to help me take care of Vanessa." Witters was puzzled. "Who is Vanessa?" "The woman you're looking for." "It's my mother." "Isn't she dead?" "Not dead." Blade said with a headache, "She's a little troublesome. Look at her, don't let her go out to drink human blood. I don't want to be the first vampire to kill after becoming director." "Knife Edge, you are soft-hearted." Witters glanced at the blade, and then said, "Leave it to me." I pulled her teeth out. "Let's see how she's still blood." Blade was speechless. He vaguely felt that this was a pretty bad idea. On a sunny noon, in Luna Park, Coney Island, New York, Frank Custer, who was drinking Coke in front of the stall, looked at Wong Bert walking down from the sports car, and exaggeratedly said, "Wow, what did I see? The vampire actually appeared during the day. I'm no ordinary vampire now." Bert Wong laughed and hugged Frank, while Mercury stayed in the sports car. After all, she was not immune to sunlight. The glass of the sports car has a special coating that can isolate ultraviolet rays. Wong Bert apologized, "I'm sorry, I'm late. A few senators have been pulling me to chat, asking questions. I have to socialize." "Senator?" Frank glanced at the Lamborghini next to him and said with a smile, "It seems that you are rich." "To be honest, the Rolls-Royce that came to pick us up this morning really surprised me." Wong Bert smiled and said, "It's not ordinary, this is my reward for saving the world." "You made me almost believe it, really, just a little bit." Frank naturally didn't believe it. He thought of something and sighed, "Watch less movies. In the real world, heroes often don't end well. It seems that Instructor Custer has a deep impression on you." Wong Bert smiled and said, "Don't talk about that, Instructor. Did you have a good time just now?" "Very happy, thank you for inviting our family to play here." Frank said with a smile, "However, how much did you pay those employees? I think they were too enthusiastic. They played with us the whole time, and even pushed a car and followed us all the time." "No money, but I have shares here." Wong Bert smiled and said, "If you are free after a while, I will take you to Universal Studios on a private jet, which is more interesting there." "Have shares, a private jet? It seems that you are really rich." Frank was a little surprised, but he didn't ask any more, because he thought that Wong Bert should have inherited some inheritance. He asked straight to the point, "Bert, is there anything you want me to do?" Wong Bert didn't talk nonsense, he said, I want to ask you to be a personal bodyguard. Frank was stunned. Ask me to be your personal bodyguard? Yes, personal bodyguards. Vampires can't see the light during the day, I need human bodyguards. Wong Bird nodded and said, I can offer you $1 million annual salary, and various benefits will not treat you badly. Million annual salary. Frank was a little surprised. This was several times more than his salary as a trainer. To be honest, he was really moved. Yes, there may be a salary increase in the future. Wong Bird smiled and said, Instructor Custer, you have 2 children, so you should be under a lot of pressure, right? I believe this job will not disappoint you. Although the parents of Lao Mei don't need to prepare a house for their children, they must prepare tuition fees, especially university tuition fees, which are a mess. Speaking of this, Frank was a little embarrassed. He also knew that he needed to save money, but he was a soldier and was used to spending a lot of money. Even so, Frank thought about it and chose to refuse. He said, I prefer to stay in the army. Bert, if you really want a bodyguard, I will introduce you to a friend of mine, his name is Billy Russell, there is a special security company. I know him, but I don't like him. Wong Bird shook his head. He turned around and gestured to Mercury. Mercury threw a yellow document bag at him from the car. Frank was a little speechless. What kind of secretary is this? To throw things to the boss like this, why don't he keep it for the new year? She's a vampire and can't get out of the car. I'm already looking for a human secretary. Wong Bird raised his hand to catch the document bag, then handed it to Frank, and said, Here are some things I found. You can look at it when you get home, so as not to affect your current mood. Frank was a little confused, but he still took the file bag and said, I'll contact you after I've read it. Wong Bird said, Well, instructor, do you mind if I have dinner together? I just met your wife and children. Frank smiled and said, I can't ask for it. Maria said it before, I want to thank you personally. Then, Bert Wong and Frank's family went to the restaurant for dinner. Frank's wife, Maria Custer, was a very gentle woman, and their pair of children were also very cute. Uncles and uncles kept calling. Looking at Frank, who was so gentle to his family, without the appearance of a strong man on the battlefield, Wong Bird sighed secretly, tough man is tender. It is because Frank loves his family deeply that after they die, he will turn into a black man. Punisher, fortunately, the tragedy of this life will not be repeated. Soon, the lunch ended in a happy atmosphere. Bert Wong has something to do in the afternoon, so he said goodbye in advance. Wait for the summer vacation, I'll take you to Universal Studios. Wong Bird waved to Frank's children, started the sports car, and disappeared from the Custer family's sight with a huge roar. Maria turned her head and asked Frank curiously, Frank, you actually know such a rich friend? Former employer. Frank thought for a while, and told the other party that he wanted him to be a bodyguard. Maria was very surprised, 1 million annual salary? I didn't expect our Frank to be worth so much. Are you underestimating me? Frank pretended to be dissatisfied, he hesitated and told the other party about his decision. Although Maria was a little disappointed, she still said, You can decide for yourself, I will always be on your side. Thank you. Frank hugged Maria gratefully. With her and the child, he owns the whole world. In the sports car, Mercury asked Wong Bird, Blood God, with your current status, you don't need to come to the door to recruit a bodyguard, right? Wong Bird said, he is different. If he is fully prepared, he can destroy the entire team of Dick and Firth alone. Mercury didn't believe it, you are talking about Superman, not human. Don't talk about that, what about the afternoon's itinerary? Wong Bird didn't explain much. How could Mercury understand the power of Uncle Punishment? That is the highest value of ordinary human combat power. And compared to his own combat power, Uncle Pu is more powerful in his commanding ability, which is why Wang Bot wants to invite him. What Wang Bot wants is not a bodyguard, but a commander. We've already talked to Shield, and Shield will come over in the afternoon to exchange prisoners with us. In addition, they have already returned some of the companies and funds they took away. Mercury said, according to estimates, we can get back about 70% in the end. Wang Bert said, 70%? Not bad. It seems that Director Fury is not as black-hearted as I thought. I thought I could only get back about 30%. It should be to see Ms. Carter's face. Of course, it may also be two people acting. Quicksilver said that she was still hostile to Carter. No, it should be said that she was even more hostile. During this time, their pure-blooded power and interests were constantly being deprived by the other party. This woman's ability is quite terrifying. Wang Bert said lightly, Carter did a good job. Mercury didn't say much. Pureblood's plan to use Wang Bot as a puppet could already be declared bankrupt. Whether it was Wang Bo or Carter, they were not easy to match. The location of the exchange of prisoners was in the underground parking lot of an abandoned factory in Hell's Kitchen, Clinton District, Manhattan Island. The leader of Shield. In this exchange, in addition, I will join the Blood Clan police station as the deputy chief. Welcome. Bert Wong and Melinda shook hands, and then asked someone to open the door at the entrance of the stairs and let out the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. These agents were all looking good and obviously had not been abused. Seeing this, Melinda turned around and signaled. An agent opened the bus door and the bloodletter captives came down. The 8th level agent John Garrett walked up to Wang Bert first, and said badly, Blood God, we will meet again, but not here, but in SHIELD, when the time comes, I will meet greetings to you. Wang Bert smiled and said, I will go to SHIELD, remember to prepare some tea, I won't drink any tea below $10,000. You can just drink gold. John Garrett complained, he seemed to be very dissatisfied with Bert Wong, but when no one noticed, he and Bert Wong exchanged glances, and everything was silent. Melinda said with a stern face, Sir Garrett, Director Fury asks you to report back to SHIELD immediately. Understood, I don't know how many reports to write this time. John Garrett scolded angrily and walked towards the SHIELD bus with a group of prisoners. At the same time, the vampire prisoners walked towards Wang Bert and others with 3 points of confusion and 7 points of surprise. Mercury immediately brought people up to greet them, on the one hand, to reassure them, and on the other hand, to explain the current situation to them, lest they disrespect the blood god. This blood is not easy to mess with. USHIELD have gone too far. Look at them, all of them are pale and vain, obviously being abused by you. Wang Bert rebuked dissatisfiedly, I'm very good to you people from SHIELD, I don't have to worry about eating and drinking, and Garrett is getting fat. John Garrett stumbled and almost didn't fall, turned around and gave Wang Bert a hard middle finger. Melinda was also speechless. Isn't it natural for a vampire to be pale? Is it a problem to have a ruddy face? She said coldly, if you have any dissatisfaction, you can go to Director Fury to complain. Wang Bert nodded, good suggestion, Mercury, remember to write me a letter of complaint. Melinda didn't bother to pay attention to Wang Bert, and asked, the exchange of prisoners has been completed. Next, who should I contact to find out about the Sanguine police station? The Blade is on the 3rd underground floor. You can take your people to find him. Recently, there are many blood clans who want to do something and need you. Wang Bert said, Melinda, although you and I have different positions, we both hope that the world will be peaceful. I hope you won't let me down. Since I take over this position, I will naturally perform the corresponding duties. Melinda said coldly, what did she think of, and asked, this is the headquarters of the Sanguine police station you selected? Yes, right here, the Blood Clan police station will be built underground, which is not only safe, but also very convenient. In addition, a factory will be rebuilt on the ground to summon the Blood Clan to work. Wang Bird nodded and said, by the way, does your SHIELD have any tax-free channels? Opening a factory in the city is very taxing. It's better to get me some subsidies. What do you do by looking at me like this? The big deal is to give you some rebates to SHIELD, we are now considered partners. Return. Melinda became more and more speechless. She didn't know how to complain, so she turned around and left, and went to the third underground floor to find Blade's Edge to report. This kind of thing, I still have to discuss it with Nick Fury. That guy is very interested in rebates. Wang Bird shrugged. At this moment, Mercury walked over with a group of prisoners. Although these prisoners looked complicated, no one dared to stab them. They all shouted in a respectful voice, "Thank you to the Blood God for saving us." Wang Bird said, "You're welcome, Mercury will tell you the changes during this period, you have to remember that times have changed, and now it's my time." The vampires looked at each other in dismay, and finally, under Mercury's gesture, they said in unison, "Yes, Blood God. Go back and rest." Wang Bird waved them to leave, and he himself took the Mercury to a cafe on the edge of Hell's Kitchen, also the property under his name. Wang Bird looked at the long-term rental apartment opposite through the glass, and asked, "Have you bought that long-term rental apartment?" "I have signed a contract with the owner, but there are a lot of tenants inside, so it's not easy to deal with." Standing in the shadows, Mercury said, "We have talked to them, but few are willing to move out. Legally, they have the right to live until the end of the contract. I suggest using some extra means. Anyway, the people inside are not good people, either alcoholics, gamblers, and poisoners. They don't move out www.mentalnovel.com because they can't afford the rent elsewhere." Wang Bird said, "Buy another long-term rental apartment and move them in. In addition, everyone should pay more compensation. This will cost us a lot of money." Mercury said, "Blood God, why do you have to buy this apartment as the headquarters of the Blood God Group? Hell's Kitchen is a better place than this." Wang Bird said, "The feng shui here is good. In short, buy it as soon as possible, then demolish the long-term rental apartment and build our group headquarters." The word feng shui, Wang Bird, was spoken in Chinese, and Mercury was confused. "Feng shui? What is that? You don't need to pay attention to it. In short, do as I say. As for money, don't worry about it. I have more money." Wang Bird said that the long-term rental apartment is where the keel is located. "Is it good for feng shui? You are indeed not short of money. I will find a lawyer to settle this matter as soon as possible." Mercury agreed. Then, she took the laptop to Wang Bird and pointed to the resume on it, saying, "Blood God, this is the secretary I'm looking for you. They are all from the Kazakh family. You can use it with confidence." Laptop? The technology in this world is quite chaotic. Tony Stark has used holographic projection, and smartphones are not yet fully popularized. By the way, is there Twitter now? Do you want to acquire it? It will be specially blocked in the future. That golden retriever. Wang Bird took over the computer and carefully read the resume above. When he turned to the third resume, he couldn't help but be taken aback. Wang Bird pointed at the red-haired wavy beauty on the resume, and asked Mercury with a speechless face, "Is this woman also of the Kazakh family?" Mercury glanced at it, nodded and said, "Natalie Rushman, she is indeed of the Haxian family. She has several degrees and is proficient in fighting. She is the best of this group."